Hello, this is the September video chat. I have a lot of announcements this time. I'll try and just run through them. I guess the first is we've gotten some data back on the signatures. I'll do the stop killing game stuff first and then move on. The first is we got back some data on the signatures, and for the countries that have submitted back results, it looks like I was worrying for nothing. So far, well, a few days ago, the average was 97% are verified. Not total, but like out of the ones that we have countries back, they've been. Since then, it's dropped to 96%, but that's still, well above what we need. I did the math. I think the number we need is a little under 72%. So I think it's a done deal. This is going to get a hearing. That said, unfortunately, a whole lot's been going on that I either can't talk about it or I don't know if I can talk about it, so I'm assuming I can't. But it's looking positive, and I've been told to expect more. Oh, nobody can see me? Oh, well, that's a problem. What the hell's going on then? Is that just that one person? Or, hi, I cannot see Ross. Hey, where's... Okay, if somebody can see me, then okay, good. Then the people who can't, sorry, you'll see me later on YouTube if you want. I'll put the stream there afterwards. Yeah, in the future, if there's ever a technical problem, just spam the chat in capital letters. So for early October, there's something that, I think I know what's happening, but I don't think I'm allowed to talk about it yet. I'll say it could be very promising. I think that's safe saying that. I don't think it's necessarily a sure thing, but it could be extremely promising for the initiative or the movement in general. But this would be in the EU. Some other news that's probably less promising, but still better than it could be. For the UK petition, they've responded, and they say it's going to get a debate in Parliament. That's actually more than it could have. They could have just said, no, we're just going to take the Department of Media, Cultures, and Sports garbage answer and just ignore all this. But they said it's going to happen on November 3rd. A lot of people are pessimistic on that one, and it may be completely warranted for all I know. The UK was more like in the category of trying petitions like in Canada, where we just didn't know, and so we're trying to get a solid answer one way or the other. In the case of Canada, they kicked it to the provinces. That's not going to happen in the UK, but what I'm hoping is that at least some member of Parliament states that the answer that we've already received does not really address what we're asking for. I mean, it says no to what we're asking for, then every reason it gives is not related. It's something different. Like they're saying, oh, well, companies have to shut down their games eventually. Yeah, we know. That's not what we're asking for. Another one was, well, you can't expect them to support old software. It's like, yeah, we know. We're asking for this ongoing to have a provision. So I still don't know if that's intentional obfuscation, like they're playing dumb, or if it's just pure misunderstanding. But I think what's going to happen in the UK is we're going to get something resembling a definitive answer. Like if they refuse to understand it, I can't believe every member of Parliament is going to misunderstand it, by chance. So if they refuse to understand it, that's kind of our answer that they're not going to deal with this. But there's the legal situation in the UK isn't nearly as strong as what's going on in the EU. But one thing that I really hope gets brought up is, under their own rules, Consumer Protection Regulations 2008 say that the customer needs to have, that the seller can't withhold information that can influence the customer's purchase decision. So right now, most online video games, you get nothing for the time frame. I mean, yeah, the range we have is for 8 days to 20 plus years. So like the eight days would be the Culling 2 and 20 plus years would be Guild Wars. So that's completely gambling with how much, with the time span. So I think that's all right. I'm not sure what the process is if basically the whole industry or a huge portion of it is just disregarding the law on this. So that's the other thing. We haven't pushed that as hard because the resolution of that probably wouldn't save games, but we'll see what happens. So anyway, the only message I would take from this is even if the UK action crashes and burns and goes down in flames, that doesn't really reflect on what's going on in the EU or Australia for that matter. They're different legal systems. So the UK was more of a long shot, but we'll see. But it's encouraging. It's at least going to get heard in Parliament. So if they really didn't want to talk about it, wouldn't have even gotten that far. They could have just said, nope, we're not going to deal with this. So let's see. Yeah, more announcements. Oh yeah, this one is this one is underreported, or else I haven't seen it in the right places. Let's see. Yeah, here I'll put a link to a news article here. This is definitely ties in to kind of what we're doing. Basically, what happened was there was another raid of someone's house for being in possession of games by the police. The earlier one was in Italy. This one was in the UK, and it gets messy, but apparently this guy was a reseller and bought like a whole bunch of gaming hardware and was reselling it. And then an undercover, not a police officer, a private investigator offered to buy it from them. And then once they did, they used that to like report them to the police on it. And then the UK police raided their home and searched. Apparently what happened was there was these developer kits. There were these Nintendo, I think DS developer kits that were in possession by Sega, and they weren't supposed to enter the public market, but the guy who bought it just bought it as part of like a kind of like a wholesale sale of just general parts. And so the person who was raided did nothing illegal, best I can tell. Like even if it was unlawful for this stuff to be possessed, he didn't know that. So like I would compare it to like if you went to a pawn shop and you bought a watch, then later like the police knock on your door and tell you like that watch is stolen, sorry, we're gonna have to repossess it, but you can get compensation from the pawn shop owner or something. It's more like that, where the person who bought the stolen watch, they're not at fault for anything, But like also, it gets more complicated because also like a representative from Sega was there at the raid, pointing to like, and then like they searched more of the apartment, like they were photographing and videotaping the apartment on it, and like I think there was a warrant, but they couldn't get information on it. Anyway, this person reached out to me offering an interview, but it would be anonymous, so we would probably just have like a voice thing. I was thinking, well, I might not be the best person for this. And plus, this is something that could really use a UK lawyer to just comment on, just to give their opinion. Because if this is in the United States, like, part of it, I'm not sure if it would be entrapment or not. Like, if the private investigator was working with the police, then it seems like he would be an agent of the police. But if they weren't, then wouldn't they be breaking the law if they know that these are illicit cartridges or something, developer kits? I wasn't sure, and plus, I don't think there was enough evidence that. I don't know, the whole thing sounds like a clown show. However, so I tried to spread this news to a few contacts I had. One of them picked it up. I don't think he's released what he's done yet, but Gamers Nexus is interested in interviewing him and might have this on his channel later. So I guess stay tuned for that, or feel free to spread the news on it yourself. So I'll have a link to it in the description. But I was thinking, this is just so nuts. Like, and it makes the industry look really bad too if they're like working with police to break the law. It's like, yeah, let's. I kind of want to point out when the games industry is acting really badly for the time being, just because of the politics of pushing the Stop Killing Games initiative. Because, you know, if they're acting in actual criminal ways, I think I would like EU regulators to be aware of that. You know, so when you know, weighing their decision on what should be done here. So, but yeah, it's, I don't know, if he really wants to, I can still interview him. But yeah, I think Gamers Nexus is going to interview him, and I think he said he would be able to get a UK lawyer to comment on it. But yeah, because it's such a mess when you read through the article. Another thing I want to mention, Kian Bros, the guy who's doing the class action lawsuit in Sweden against Microsoft over Microsoft changing their terms in the Microsoft license agreement and basically just ignoring consumer rights. He's launched a class action lawsuit, and so I think if you owned Minecraft before 2023, I forget, you can join in on the class action lawsuit, and that would probably help. I'll have a link to that too, though I think it's at kianbros.com. Plus, he made a video on it. Then I'll link to that also. That's one of those things where we actually have, both he and I with Stop Killing Games, we're facing very similar procedural problems, but we're tackling little kind of different areas, because he's going after them for basically changing the terms of the agreement after the fact. You know, you click I agree, but then they just change what's in there, and then so everything you agreed to doesn't matter now because it said they could change it for whatever reason they want. And what we care about is the, you know, can terminate at any time for any reason part. But it's a similar problem with him, because he tried going through the agencies, and then it was a mess. I don't want to misspeak for what happened, but it just sounded like a mess, similar to what we face. And for him in Sweden, the way out of this is a class action lawsuit, which he has to raise money for and put himself at financial risk on top of that, as I understand it. It kind of shows how the system's kind of broken when it comes to regulation of video games. And it's the sort of thing where if he has a win, there's a small chance that might trickle down to what we're doing too, because again, it kind of depends on how the law would go on it, because there are two different provisions of the license agreement. But if it takes a more broad angle that, no, you can't just have all these unfair terms in the license agreements and we're going to throw the book at you if you do that, then that might trickle down to our issue too. So I'm trying to spread the word some on that to, you know, get a more, I imagine there's a lot of people who own Minecraft out there who might want to weigh in on that. I mean, yeah, it's a class action lawsuit, so I think, so the stereotype is you'll probably just get like a pittance from it, and lawyers will get most of it, but it's more about, you know, establishing that, like, no, we would like it if video game companies do not upend the law, you know, so. Yeah, for the regular videos, I honestly don't know what I'm doing next. I'll just tell you what's going through my head. Honestly, like what I've been doing lately has just been kind of catching up on all the work I kind of neglected doing, all the stuff with Stop Killing Games. I'm still taking generous portions of the day for entertainment, though. That wasn't doing that before. But I haven't really had days off. I still want a few of those. But what I'm thinking is, okay, I really need to get back to getting something out, to not, you know, set fire to my own channel. What I'm thinking is I need to make a Halloween episode. I kind of didn't want a regular episode prior to that, and then, of course I do the follow-up episode, and I also do need to do Freeman's Mind, and I probably should be thinking about doing a Christmas episode. So I'm not, and I promised earlier this year I was gonna like really, well, I guess I'm gonna have to break that promise partially, spend months on the movie. I still plan to do that, but this other stuff should probably take that priority a little bit. So I'm thinking maybe I can just do a spree and have stuff, and then I'm spending most of December on the movie and have that spill over into like January, February next year or something like that. My intuition tells me somebody's going to be upset no matter what I do, but as long as I just keep getting something out that's like, you know, decent, I think most people will be forgiving of what I do. So that's, I'm figuring it out myself what I'm doing next. But yeah, multiple game dungeons in Freeman's Mind are kind of the priority, but I kind of want to get something in on the movie or more stuff processed on the pipeline. So I'm figuring it out. Yeah, as for some of the stuff I've been doing, I was actually preparing to kind of update my version of Windows 10 to a more recent version of Windows 10. And I was considering, like, well, hey, maybe I should just jump to 11. But the more research I've done on it, the more it makes me not want to, because like I was finding some posts where there's some bugs that have been patched in 10 that the patch isn't present in 11. But the thing that was really scaring me off was there's this currently ongoing bug where there is this update. Here, I can even give the numbers for it. There's 2 updates to Windows 11 that are breaking some SSDs. Like it's actually damaging them. And one of these you can remove and one of them you can't. The updates are, well, here, I'll just post them in the chat. 506-3878 and 506-2660. And apparently Microsoft's denying it's a problem or saying, well, we can't replicate it, or it's all the SSD BIOSes. But one YouTuber has been pretty good on this. Was it Jay's something? I always forget the rest of his channel. But somebody's saying, I believe that's been fixed now. Proof or it didn't happen is how I feel about that. You know, I want a comprehensive article or, you know, YouTube video explaining, yes, this has been fixed and, you know, demonstrating it. Yeah, Jay's 2 cents. Yeah, Jay's 2 cents. Yeah. He's had good coverage on this. And he pulled up like a copy of like an F1 racing game and was able to like demonstrably break it, you know, so. Okay, couple, oh yeah, I guess I should have made an announcement on this. I only tested it just today. The Crew Unlimited, they have released their server emulator. So, I tested it. It works. You need to be online to get the files, but then I backed it up and I tried it completely offline. It works offline. So you can now run the Crew offline. So we're really getting the best of both worlds here because the game has come back. Like to me, it almost feels like the Thanos snap return. Yeah, the return from the Thanos snap from the Marvel movies. But we got to use that as a missile to basically try to attack this practice. I mean, I think even if you, yeah, see, I have the Uplay copy, but I only have it because I backed up the client files. I disregarded the part in the license agreement that says I'm required to destroy those files. So I tested it works, but if you didn't do that, Ubisoft has literally deleted the client from people's accounts. So it's like, man, yeah, so it's still a very valid argument that the customer has been robbed. Plus, yeah, I mean, I don't know what the legality of it is, but I mean, I'm of course willing to test it out. Oh yeah, the modding now. They have just started on the modding. There's several good ones already. I think I'm gonna get the majority of my checklist or my wish list for mods I wanted. Some are out right now that I haven't tested. Like you can adjust the traffic density. That's pretty awesome. I think they're working on like pedestrian density. I think there's an FOV mod already. And I can confirm in the past at least, that with VorpX, you can get that running in VR and stereoscopic. So having a high FOV is really appreciated for that. So I think I'm going to be able to run it in VR. They're working on a big lighting overhaul, which is going to look awesome. Yeah, somebody's asking if this would affect the analysis of the agency. No, it won't factor that in at all. If anything, it's going to make them look worse because, you know, a group of fans put it together. So it's, you know, Besides, that doesn't do anything if you bought it on Xbox or PlayStation. You know, this is only for the PC copies. So, what were some other mod? I think they're working on better headlights. I think they might be working on like, you know, being able to control the time of day or the time scale, or like control the weather. I think this game is going to be so much better with mods. Like I'm looking forward to it, but I'll probably let it. I'll probably not really get into it that much until like the dust has kind of settled on like the biggest mods that I wanted. Like I kind of look at this almost like it's like a new Bethesda release, you know, where you're just waiting for like this list of mods that you know are going to show up. So no, it's going to be so awesome. I think this game's going to be clearly better now that it's going to be moddable. So, and now it's safe too. So if you do want the vanilla experience, you know, you could play it today I guess if you have a copy of it and have retained the client files. I think if you bought it on Steam, you can still get the client files from there. But if you bought it on Uplay, you had to kind of do it ahead of time. So, yeah, I'm stoked about that. Let's see. There's some other. Oh yeah. Something I thought was worth mentioning because a lot of people have talked about how Nintendo has been trying to patent. It's a little more specific than this, but not that much. Like summoning mechanics, where you summon a character and then they fight for you. And I haven't looked at the exact wording. It makes me wonder what the earliest game is that has that, because it could be there's a distinction where it doesn't count. But I was thinking the earliest one I'm sure there are earlier ones, but the earliest one I can think of would be Diablo 2. Playing as a necromancer. No, in Diablo 1, you could summon a golem, and it would fight for you, I think. If I'm not... God, it's been so long since I played it. Yeah, I think you could summon a golem in either Diablo or Hellfire. But I mean, I'm sure there's many earlier games RPGs where you can summon one. But anyway, they got a patent for that. And there's a lot of discussion that they really shouldn't have gotten the patent for this. And that's being challenged. But what's come up is, here, I'll give a link to some news I saw on this. They're saying, what? They're saying, I think it was presented as evidence that there was a mod for Dark Souls 3, which obviously came much later, but it predates the patent, showing like basically this exact summoning mechanic. And they said that mods, apparently Nintendo is saying mods aren't real games, so they don't count. I'm thinking, wow. I'm thinking there's only one of two things going on here. One, it's just a naked power grab where that they're just trying to establish a dynasty, essentially, and trying to pervert the law into backing it up. Or the other possibility is that even Nintendo has what I'm calling gamer brain. You know, where I'm talking about how like people in the industry or in gaming have all these expectations that don't exist in the law. They just see this as the way things are. So maybe the corporation has gotten gamer brain to the point where they're thinking that, okay, well, it's in a mod, so it doesn't count. I mean, if there's a legal basis for that, I would be very surprised. Because, I mean, just even, actually got me thinking, like, what are the, like, I could see you maybe floating that argument if it was like a really minor change to a game. Like if you were just like something like Instagib, you know, where like every weapon immediately kills the enemy as opposed to taking on their health. That's like a simple number tweak. And even that, I think it should invalidate a patent. But I could see, but if all the assets are the same and everything else is the same, okay. But there's plenty of games that are like, they're like unrecognizable compared to the original. Like some I was thinking of was like the Never mod for compared to for Oblivion, where it's like a completely different game. Like just different landscape, like different mechanics, different story characters. I mean, like it's kind of a total conversion. Counter Strike, people forget it's a mod. The original's a mod of Half-Life, and that's a very different looking game than Half-Life. There were a lot of them for Source or Gold Source, like Firearms. Like I remember one called Snow War. I think there was like Vampire Hunter. Yeah, Zombie Panic. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, been mentioning Team Fortress for Quake. Yeah, and I think there was like I forget if Defense of the Ancients was a mod for Warcraft 3, or if it was even it might have even been a mod for StarCraft. And that's when, yeah, that's one where I'd say I guess it depends on what you're looking at. If you're just looking at mechanics, then yeah, it's pretty different. Dodo's a mod for, I could have sworn Defense of the Ancients might have been a mod for StarCraft also. And that would have predated Warcraft 3 for sure. But, I mean, it got big in Warcraft 3 until it just, yeah, and like, DayZ was a mod of Arma. So, yeah, I mean, it's like, but like, there have been mods that they're just unrecognizable from the original. So, oh yeah, like Neo Tokyo. That's one. I mean, that's much later, but that's one where that does not look like Half-Life Deathmatch. Half-Life 2 Deathmatch. That looks like its own kind of standalone, kind of Ghost in the Shell type game or something. Yeah. So it's so I'm just I think it's probably their legal team trying to. I mean, I don't know. That's such a. I feel like that's such a flawed argument. Like the legal team, yeah, I feel like they either know something we don't, or else they're delusional because it's like so many gamers and game developers kind of treat single player and multiplayer as though they're separate things under the law. And like they're separate. They can be very separate. I guess they can be as similar or as separate as you want in terms of the coding. But so I can understand why they might. But under the law, there aren't separate rules for multiplayer. I mean, there can be rules for like online content exposure. Like that's why like with the rating system, they say like online content is not rated, that sort of thing. But I mean, you could send stuff online through a single player game also. I mean, it's so or yeah, like with data collection, data collection is obviously done probably a lot more to multiplayer games, but a single player could be sending telemetry like stuff to the seams with it if the company wanted it to. So it's not an inherent property of it. So I'm saying New Vegas is a mod of Fallout 3. No, not really. I mean, it's an expansion to Fallout. Well, no, it's a standalone game using Fallout 3 as the engine. Like under the Nintendo definition, that would not be a mod because it's a published game by a studio sold in stores. I mean, that's really the distinction. But I mean, obviously, it's using Fallout 3 as a foundation to all kinds of aspects to the game, but it was licensed and everything. So yeah, but if you're looking at the legal distinction, but anyway, I really hope Nintendo loses this because yeah, I listened to a video on it by Legendary Drops. They had real good analysis on this where they're saying that if this goes through, I've seen these, what I consider very weak arguments that like, oh no, if companies are forced to, well, yeah, forced, that's another interpretive aspect. If companies are mandated, if they want to sell in the EU to, not brick your game once support ends and there has to be some way for you to run it, then like, oh, that's going to just ruin the games industry and have this chilling effect and hurt creativity and stop these games kind of being made. that is a complete joke to the concept of being able to patent game mechanics, what that would do to the industry. I mean, yeah, okay, so like let's say that Nintendo thing got upheld. Okay, so even if they're not, you think that wouldn't, even if there is some wiggle room on that, you think that wouldn't have a chilling effect on every single game that has like a summoning aspect to it? So like basically every game with like a playable necromancer class or like, you know, a druid class with a summon pets, or just they have engineer classes, that sort of thing. I mean, that's so many different games. So, and then I think the point they made in Legendary Drops video was that, So yeah, Ubisoft might try to patent like wall running or something they're like more known for, or well, let's see, what was the other? He gave another good example or something. It would just be like a nightmare. I mean, that would really strangle game creativity if you can't just have like similar mechanics. You know, yeah. People are bringing up the Warner Brother patenting their Nemesis system. See, that's something I also feel like shouldn't have happened. But maybe Nintendo's doing the industry a favor by shining a light on this, so that this is going to like have a chilling effect on the industry trying to patent, you know, mechanics. I mean, that's, you know, it's just stupid. You know, you should. I mean, there are already copyright protections in place, and like if your game was like really similar across the board at all levels, so like actually I think there have been a few Chinese counterfeit games that are kind of like that, where they're, you know, it's like, or what was it, the Zynga was doing some of that too, where they were just they're basically just copying the game wholesale, changing like the art assets a little bit and then just publishing it, that sort of thing. Yeah, okay, well, somebody's saying the Nintendo doesn't cover every summoning mechanic, just the specific implementation in the upcoming Pokemon games. Okay, yeah, but it won't matter because that'll have a chilling effect. Because let's say you're an indie developer, let's say Nintendo goes after another one, you know, are you an indie developer? Like, you can't afford to have a big lawsuit with Nintendo if they come after you. Are you still gonna have that summoning mechanic in your game? Let's say it's Pokemon-ish, you know, like it's not exactly it, or just, you know, you don't even want to have that risk and put all these resources into your game with summoning mechanics, knowing there's a chance Nintendo might come after you, especially because Nintendo does like to get litigious about things. Or it would create it would disincentivize pretty much any game that comes close to that, and only the ones that are like really sure of their legal status and really want to do that would push forward with it. Because yeah, you could even make that an increased cost to the game. Because like, okay, now if we're going to do a game that has a summoner class in it, we need to make sure the part of our budget goes to our legal team to double check everything we're doing, that this doesn't infringe upon Nintendo's patent. And then if other companies start coming out with patents, then you're gonna have to do that with other mechanics. Yeah, the point mentioned, I'll have a link to it, I don't have it offhand, but the point in the Legendary Drops video is that because the industry, the AAA industry is kind of struggling with revenue for some games, what they might be doing now is just trying to do kind of like lawfare, you know, legal warfare against other companies to sort of attack the competition, so if they can't make their games better or make them make them more enjoyable, that sort of thing, then what they can try and do is kind of strangle the competition through legal means. So that's bad news. So yeah, man, if you talk about harming creativity in the industry, what we're doing, well, one, I feel like what we're doing is just that argument's extremely flimsy. Yeah, the only creativity we would have a chilling effect on are games where zero budget is put towards specifically online only games, which is not most games. Yeah, that's a minority in itself, where you're putting zero resources to any afterthought of for an end of life plan. So once the support eventually ends, you're putting zero thought into that. So yes, if your game is being structured in that way, that could have a very, even then I think it would be a temporary minor chilling effect, because it would cause those companies to think like, okay, if we're going to do this, we need to have some methodology so you can run the game after end of life. And that's a very low hurdle for planning new games, I think. And I mean, because it kind of scales with budget. Well, there are nuances to that. I'll give it that. There are nuances to it. However, I think over time, it would become almost like a no-brainer thing, because then the tools would emerge that this does become like kind of it's just one checkbox and there's already tools for it. And plus, the thing to remember is there's a certain level of resources and responsibility you need just to have an online only game in the first place. That's the thing, because, we see arguments, this is going to hurt all these small indie developers. Most indie developers are not making these online only games that are required to connect to a central server to begin with. That requires more money and more responsibility, because then you're assuming the responsibility essentially for the security of the customer's system by hosting it, by requiring them to go through you and their privacy info. Whereas if you're making a multiplayer game and you can host it and the customer can host it, well then they're kind of assuming the responsibility for that, because they're the ones hosting the server. So yeah, and somebody's saying most indie devs don't even want to make live service games at all. Yeah, that's something I've always thought about live service games is I bet for a lot of them, that could be hell on the developers, because you're expected to have constant, frequent updates, where it's like, okay, well, now we need to add new maps. Okay, well, now we need to add new weapons and new skins and okay, new mechanics. And I was just thinking, that just sounds like a grindstone to be able to have that, especially if players are expecting it every 3 months or something. That just sounds brutal. And it kind of limits what you can do. Whereas, if you release your main game and then you get a lot of income revenue from that, then you can kind of have a breather. So if you do want to add a lot of new stuff, you can kind of take it more at your own pace, I would think. And then, because then you're writing off the revenue you got from releasing the base game. So then if there is a new DLC or just a big update, well, then you kind of afford to do that. But it just sounds like never-ending pressure to do a live service game, depending on how many updates you have. So, I mean, I guess they can work it out, but man, you can maybe mitigate that with enough people. If the workload's distributed enough, then you can maybe work that out. But I bet a lot of them don't work it out well, and it's like a never-ending crunch. So, let's see. Okay, yeah, so that's all I have for announcements. I guess it took up a chunk of the time, but I guess I should get to the submitted questions. I remember there were a lot here worth talking about, too. I didn't have a great answer for the first one, though. Has your move to Poland affected your taste in media, culture, gaming, outside of gaming? Or have you discovered anything in Poland that you ended up really liking that you probably wouldn't have learned otherwise? There's... I don't know about really liking, but there's a few things. One was I've only seen clips of it, but I want to see more. I was liking what I was seeing. There was a parody of communist Poland, back during the Soviet era, where there was one clip where like they were worried about, like there was like this kind of like public like canteen where people are eating, and the waitresses were going around and like screwing the bowls down to the table before they poured the soup in them so that people couldn't steal the bowls afterwards. And then like I think they had a parody where they were making announcements, and then like they did one in like British English. It's like a kind of a stereotype that like it's harder to understand what they're saying. So they were putting like jawbreakers or something in their mouth and like saying like over the announcement, and that was it for. It's just a goofy, knock against British English. I don't know. It looked like a parody of like Soviet era Poland. That looked like it would be. It would look like it was funny from what I was seeing. Yeah, actually, part of the problem is I actually had reverse culture shock one instance when I came to Poland, where I would go to like a shopping center or something, and then all of them, all of them were, yeah, it was all American music, like top 10, top 20 stuff, and there weren't like any Polish or like German or like European songs in there. It was all just American, so it's like I still couldn't escape it. And I'll answer a question quick. Why do you do submitted questions first instead of 1 hour of live questions, then submitted questions for client quits? It's because I've tried that in the past, and what happens is we'll get a lot of questions that people either won't be that interested in, or they'll just repeat over and over again. And the submitted questions was a way of getting to the questions that people were most interested in first. So the organization didn't work well, having like all live ones just from the start. It was less efficient, I guess. But yeah, other stuff in Poland, like culturally. I'm trying to think. Like, I mean, I probably would have found out about it without moving to Poland, but yeah, I mean, people can knock me for it, but I've had trouble getting into the Witcher games. Like, I don't know. It just hasn't really pulled me in. Though, I am playing another game that is Polish, but I probably would have stumbled into it anyway. Recently, I've been playing a game called Evil West, and that's by a Polish developer, and it's pretty decent. I would describe it as like if you took the Wild Wild West movie, the one that's like kind of goofy, steampunk and over the top, and just took that and made it all about fighting vampires, and that's basically the game. So. Yeah, I saw one comment on it that said, it is the embodiment of the word decent. Like, it has decent music, decent settings, decent mechanics. Yeah, I agree with that. It won't blow your mind, but... let's see. Yeah, I'm trying to think of... I've heard, like, a couple Polish songs I thought were good, but I saw one, but it didn't like blow me away. I saw one Polish movie, and it was like a sci-fi one. It was okay. The plot was like these two guys come out of stasis, and in the future everything's run by women. It was interesting. It felt kind of low budget, but it wasn't awful. I forget the name of it, but yeah, see, somebody in the chat probably knows what it is. Yeah, Six Misya or something. Yeah, I guess I haven't been exposed to enough of it, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on gaming wise. I mean, well, I guess the source material wasn't Polish, but obviously Cyberpunk 2077 is a Polish-made game, a CD Projekt. I had mixed feelings on it, but the environment is just like top rate. I mean, excuse me, that's definitely a game I'm gonna revisit. I kind of beelined the storyline in it when I played. Although I did two different like kind of endings. One where you I won't spoil too much. There's like a split point where well, no, actually, I ended up doing multiple endings. Like there was the corporation one, but there was a split point where I think it was like in the expansion. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was in the expansion, the Phantom Liberty one, where you choose whether to help the I forget her name, but like the hacker helping you or turn against her, and then those lead. Yeah, that was the absolute worst point of the game, where you choose, I think, to go against her. Yeah, you choose to go against her, and then you have to fight this kind of spider bot thing. Not the big one, but like the small, yeah, the Cerberus bot. I think that was the absolute worst part of the entire game. The Cerberus bot. That part was awful. I would take any other mission over that mission. Like I hated that one. So, okay, well, I'll answer this. I noticed this question. Somebody's saying, do I own a CRT monitor? What is your opinion on CRTs? I haven't owned one for quite a while now, though I was a late adopter on leaving CRT because I wanted something that had good, like the early flat panel monitors were all like TN panels, twisted pneumatic, I think it's called. And I hated those because when you just shifted around a little bit, like all the lighting would change. And that drove me crazy. But and then the first IPS monitors had good color on them and lighting, but then the first ones had pretty bad response time. Like you were getting streaking or major input lag. So the first monitor that had those IPS, but that had like okay response time, I switched to that. I think the first one I found was like a Dell one in 2008 or 7 or something like that. It was a 22-inch screen, 1680 by 1050. I forget the model name, but that one had okay response time, and it was an eIPS variant on it or something. I use that. I still have that monitor actually. But since then, I don't really miss the blur from CRTs. I mean, I know some people like them for like the retro look of them, and that's understandable, but I just don't really miss it. I guess if I really wanted to get the effect, I think there's some impressive shaders on it now. Plus, it was probably so low to not really matter, but just like, this could almost be like on a superstition level, but I just like the fact that they're not emitting gamma radiation, from LEDs as opposed to CRTs. So I'm happy having less radiation, But yeah, I don't miss CRTs really. So pictures, I guess if you were like super, super competitive, you would have, there is no input lag on CRT, so that's an advantage. But I'm not a hardcore enough gamer or a competitive enough gamer, I guess. You could describe me as hardcore in other ways. That, getting old games working in stereoscopic, that's not something your average person's doing. The input lag is acceptable to me on modern monitors, so. Okay, yeah, I'll get back to the submitted questions. Yeah, this will probably be a longer one. We had a bunch this time. Oh yeah, they're saying, yeah, they talk about my hatred of tinting usually. Are there any heavy color filters in games that you enjoyed in the past? Generally, no, but there have been like a few exceptions. I'm not sure I've seen any where I wouldn't have enjoyed really calibrated colored lighting more. But I was able to think of two examples that might count. One I mentioned in Game Dungeon. I think I mentioned the Division tinting. I thought it was pretty subtle and tasteful the way they did it. So I could still see it, but it wasn't bothering me too much. So the Division wasn't bad. And more recently, I finally played the original Forza Horizon. And that one definitely has some sort of either brown or orange filter going on. But again, it's extremely tasteful, I'll say. Like the look they created, it's very good, like overall. So even though it has tinting, and I think maybe you could get a similar effect without it. I can't complain. I can't complain about much for the tinting in that. But almost every other game, I can't think of where that increased my enjoyment of the game, or I thought like, oh yeah, they did a real good job of it. So I was saying was the worst was Need for Speed Online. Remember, that one was bad. Yeah, in different ways. Like it's hard to say what the worst. Yeah, because that one was like legitimately depressing. Like, yeah, I think I said in the video, if you were doing a ghost story, it's like I would still think it's cheap, but I could understand somebody doing that. But like that's the wrong move. Like, why the hell do we have this for like an open world racing game that's all about driving your car fast and running from the cops? I would think you'd want high energy, like kind of colors going on. You know, it just you don't want a somber mood for that. You want like something exciting. You know, that's there's some other real bad ones though. Well, it's not the worst, but I thought they went too heavy-handed in State of Decay. That was another one with like the orangish brown filter. Yeah, somebody saying they enjoyed Human Revolution's tinting. It does have its own style to it. It's just I don't know. I feel like it's something that really needed to be toggleable. Like Human Revolution, I think makes the it makes an argument that this like, oh yeah, we're stylizing it, but it's like when every aspect of the game has this filter, it's just I don't know, it kind of cheapens it. Like I feel like it's better. I don't know. I feel like what works for a movie that's going to be an hour and a half or 2 hours doesn't necessarily work for a game that's going to be 15 hours or longer. You know, it's like, okay, it's kind of in your face and kind of feels cheap for it. But let's see. Yeah, well, I don't need to dwell on more. I had one on my mind, but I forgot it. Discussion boils down to how many shades of color do you see throughout the whole game. But see, that's where I feel like it's a little more complicated than that, because actually, did the game I Am Alive have tinting? It might have. Because I was thinking, okay, the game I Am Alive did that kind of thing where everything's black and white except for like some shades. So kind of like. So sort of like the Sin City look. I mean, I guess that's more. Yeah, okay, I think that's what it is. I think if it's, well, no, it's two things. One, I think tinting. Someone might be able to convince me otherwise. I think tinting is always the cheaper way to do something than colored lighting, because I've seen lots of games that have a lot of style with colored lighting, and it just creates a mood, but it just doesn't. When it's applied to everything, it just gives this feeling to me that this feels cheap, like what we're doing. And the thing is, games can do whatever the hell they want with what color of light they're using. So tinting makes sense. I think it's a holdover from like film, where say you don't have a big budget and you have to film a scene that's supposed to take place at night or at dawn or something, but you have to do it during the day. Well, tinting is a cheap way to make it kind of look like it's at night or something like that. Or in the old days, you didn't, or maybe you do want a certain tone for your film, but you just didn't have all those lights when it was filmed. And this is a way to kind of fix it in post-production, that it was kind of like a cheap way to kind of get closer to what you were. But with games don't have that limitation at all. So I think they're kind of copying like a cheap aspect of, I think they're copying what I consider kind of a Band-Aid over setting the tone and mood from film. Is the way I look at it. It was a Band-Aid solution, and they're unnecessarily copying that when they could have something better. So that's that's my first thought on it. The second thought is I feel like the more it's a game that you want people dumping lots of hours into, then the more you should give more options for how they experience it visually. Like I mentioned that I Am Alive game. That's not an example of that. That's kind of straight, that's kind of a one and done linear game. Like that's, let's see, how long to beat I Am Alive. Like that's, yeah, about 5.5. Okay, they're saying 5 to 8 hours. Okay, well, that's maybe it's a little longer, but if it's like a short one and done game, then it's like, okay, then it makes more sense. But like the more you see it over and over and over for a game you want to, perfect example, Skyrim. Okay, that the default look of Skyrim has like it's desaturated and tinted. People, that's a game designed to have the hell played out of it. Like there's not really an upper limit as to how many hours people are going to be putting into Skyrim, depending on how much they like it. You should be able to turn it off, I think. But I mean, yeah, I feel like having it, being able to toggle it is like the everybody wins solution. And it wasn't planned that way, but I recently had an experience of that because I finally got around to playing Resident Evil 5. And there's a community mod that lets you have it in like ultra wide and adjust the field of view, and you can just turn off the tinting throughout the whole game. And I liked it better. I played the whole game without that yellow tint all throughout it the whole time. So I was thinking, man, I wish more games had it like this, where you can have their original vision, but if you hate that, then you just turn off the tint, so. Somebody's saying the only major company that got lighting right is Valve. No, there's been plenty of good ones. Actually, I can't remember if it had tinting or not. Bulletstorm looked really great. But yeah, I've decided my gold standard now for color comparison. I'm going to pull this out if it ever comes up in future Game Dungeons. I think I mentioned before was Forza Horizon 4. Because, well, if applicable, that takes place in a temperate environment, has all 4 seasons, has all times of day, and has a variety of weather conditions. So it does have overcast at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or it does have dawn, and like I feel like every single instance of the lighting in that game is just beautiful and perfect. So if I'm criticizing that in the future, I hope to be able to pull up similar conditions somewhere in Forza Horizon 4, like, and just have them side by side, showing like, no, this is what it would look. Because I remember I was complaining about the Oblivion remake tinting that they had in the lighting conditions. So I'm saying Unreal Tournament has Chef's Kiss lighting. Yeah, I like all the lighting at Unreal Tournament, and I don't like it at Unreal Tournament 3. I have a lot of complaints about the lighting in Unreal Tournament 3, but yeah, the original 2003, 2004, those all have great lighting. So, okay, I should move on to more questions. Oh yeah, I'll try to go through this. I'll try to go through this one quickly. They're saying, have you reconsidered switching to a Linux OS recently? They said they made the switch on desktop a few weeks ago, and other than some initial setup pain, it's been a pretty good experience. You could also try dual booting. I ended up keeping Windows on a smaller SSD in case I really need it. Plus, Linux is much more customizable on the GUI and shortcuts. Okay, I guess the first answer is no, because there's too many things I'm doing on my Windows machine that I just can't do on Linux. Like VR and stereoscopic gaming is a big one. There's other smaller things that I can maybe do within like a virtual machine inside Linux, if there was no equivalent of the utility. But so there's a few things going on here. And then under the replies, somebody says, I can vouch for this, Ross. Migrated to Kashi OS in late July. It has been very painless. I even learned how to set up down and upscaling using Gamescope and Force super sampling, though it has no support for sparse grid super sampling. well, I'm probably not going to complain too much if it's sparse grid or regular super sampling, but Gamescope is a perfect example because, okay, my knowledge is around 2 years out of date now. But at the time, I was trying to get that working. And that led to, I was consulting this relative Linux gaming expert on this. And we were doing back and forth trying to troubleshoot it. And what I would do is I'd set up on a second machine I have in the back of the room. And I would try to just troubleshoot it until I just hit a wall. Then I would email him on it and then get information back. And we just kept going back and forth like that for weeks. And then until finally it escalated to the point I did it on a video chat. And here I made a note of I have a link to it because we just couldn't figure it out. And in the, let's see, where's the link? Yeah, here is the Gamescope. I was trying to get it working on Ubuntu at the time. And so I asked for help on that, and in the forums, more people got involved until finally somebody realized that the repository that it was pointing to was outdated, and there should have been a different link. And several people involved in Linux gaming missed this. But okay, so I was sent to the wrong link, so that's why I lost like, you know, I wouldn't say weeks. It took place over weeks, but I was only spending like half an hour on it a day, or half an hour to an hour on it a day, something like that. So we're talking hours and hours and hours of testing, but okay, they sent me down a dead end. But then I tried the correct one, and I still had problems. And then there was some more back and forth. I'd just be testing it. You could see it in the thread there. And what happened was that my problem was I was doing it by integers, the scaling. So I had like a 1080 monitor. I was trying to downsampling it from 4K, so that, you know, it's double in by each axis. And apparently it works except for whole integer numbers. So if I had simply tried to scale it from 1.99 times instead of twice, that would have worked. But I didn't know that. So then some guy in the chat there was kind enough to implement a fix, but then his fix introduced new blurring. But then I kind of point out, like, no, this is more blurring than what you might get from anti-aliasing. Something else is going on here. So then he implemented another fix, and then that finally got worked out. So this is like weeks and weeks of time spent on this. I mean, not solid, you know, spread out. That on something that, you know, on Windows, we had this nailed down from 2014 onward. And even before that, there was for some games, when was that? G-Dust Sato. Okay, that was 2014 also. Okay, so this has been, so that's one example. Okay, but see, another example I've run into, where in the past I've tried to set custom resolutions. Like one I use sometimes is something like 1440 by 1080. Because if I'm running if I'm running a 4x3 game, I'm going to record it for like a 1080 for Game Dungeon or something. That's a resolution I might use. And again, both on AMD and NVIDIA, that's pretty painless to add in. But well, maybe it's on NVIDIA on Linux. But for that, in the past, I got that working several years back. By, you know, you had to jump through some hoops where you get the technical information for the monitor. And then like you have to enter that in a command line. There's some other things, but then it worked. And then I tried that again following like the notes I had left myself from last time, and now it didn't work. And then I tried troubleshooting that down, and then somebody posted a solution. Then I tried that solution, and then that doesn't work. And see, these are just anecdotal examples. You shouldn't look at just the example. What I'm saying is, for me there are so many little things I run into that are a lot like that. And for my use case, even if there's software for everything I do on Windows, which I'm pretty sure there's not. I mean, VR and stereoscopic gaming is a huge one, but there's other smaller things. I remember in my experience, it felt like 1 out of every 3rd thing I was doing was like that. 2 of them would be fine or easy, or I just need to do a different program, configure it, And then I'm set. Like, okay, I might have to learn a little bit or switch. That's fine. But then other things would be just like this rabbit hole where I'm just spending all my time troubleshooting and just chasing leads and trying to diagnose stuff. And yeah, okay, so for the person saying, oh, well, this is just NVIDIA stuff. Here, another example. During that time when I was just trying to get Gamescope working, I finally decided, like, okay, should I just try another distro entirely? And one that was recommended to me was Nobera. And so I just went and just wiped everything. That whole system I was treating like it was disposable. So I just wiped all the data on it. I wasn't trying to like do a new install on top of an old one or preserve existing partitions. I just, booted from a USB. I downloaded like their latest stable build, like their long-term build or something. I can even pull up the version number at the time, but it would have been during 2023. And I did a clean install, and it went through fine. And then I reboot, the bootloader's broken. This is not like my bootloader. This is the default bootloader included with Nobera that I did it. I tried it twice or 3 times or something, where like it just was busted. So what that says to me is nobody tested this. Like this release, or like they must have tested it in like a virtual machine or something. That, like, because I was doing nothing customized. And it wasn't like an incompatibility with the hardware. It's just that the bootloader they included with it was just busted. There was some screw up. And then I'm thinking about how that, again, anecdotal, like the Linus Tech Tips challenge where he tried installing, Pop OS, I think? Where, or maybe it was something, but he was just installing Steam, and he was just kind of following the directions, and the directions steered him straight towards deleting his desktop manager. Like, now, to be fair, it gave him warning, but the fact is, he was just trying to install Steam. Like, this is not the crazy stuff like I eventually get into. This is just like, so, yeah, you can say, well, Windows has bugs too. True. But the frequency, from my experience, the frequency feels a lot higher on Linux to me. Like, I've said before, like, modern Windows is almost like a perpetual beta. From my experience for what I've done, if that's the case, Linux feels more like a ongoing alpha, depending on what you're doing, I guess. So for Linux versus Windows, for me, it's kind of like, what's the path of least resistance? Like, so that's the thing. I am jumping through lots of hoops on Windows also, but I'm doing it to do things that might not even be possible on Windows. Like, I burned some time not long ago trying to get Jedi Knight working at stereoscopic, and I haven't really. I might have hit a dead end on that because I tried Vorpex, which could still work with the right profile, but I couldn't get it working. I tried Geo 11, which hooked into it, but then it just wasn't working, obviously. This was in combination with DG Voodoo 2, so maybe that's part of the problem. But I mean, I think the original Jedi Knight's in DirectX 5, so you kind of need a wrapper to hook into stuff. And then I tried it with Super Depth 3D, which saw some of the depth, but like I couldn't get it looking I was just unable to get it looking right. So I don't know. Yeah, feel free to contact me on that. rosswscott@gmail.com if you want to. Or another thing, this is tangential, but another game I was trying to get working in VR, I haven't tested it yet, but I'm thinking it's bugging me. Descent 3 went open source back in 2023. I didn't realize that. So I'm thinking, damn, that means you could probably get a full VR mod for it without too much drama. Or if not VR, then at least stereoscopic rendering. So yeah, and Descent 3 had more flexibility because that had OpenGL and DirectX. I think it even had Glide too. So yeah, if anybody be interested in helping me getting that working, I'd be interested in it. I've been doing more VR stuff lately. But the point is, I'm doing things that aren't even possible on Linux. Whereas this other stuff, I've just taken for granted for years and years on Windows. So there are bugs you're running the Windows that aren't on Linux, but to me, the ratio is a lot worse. So now they mentioned the GUI customization. That is 100% something that is going to be better on Linux. I think there's more possibilities on Linux. In fact, I even found out lately, if I were to go to Windows 11, I'd have to lose even more of the customization. I found, where was it? This dock program I use called, WinStep Nexus, which my version of it has issues, but he had this quote on it. Where the hell did I put that? Yeah, here we go. Wait, yeah. In Windows 11 23H2, Microsoft started using XAML islands for the system tray, which broke compatibility with all Win32 applications that needed to retrieve information about tray icons. So it looks like I can't customize the system tray icons anymore with Windows 11. It's like the opposite direction for customization with Windows. I hate that. So yeah, and they were mentioning dual boot. Dual booting is kind of a pain in the ass. I mean, I could do that if it was something I didn't do frequently. Like, okay, one thing I do kind of infrequently are games that require anti-cheat. So let's say I couldn't run those on Linux, but everything else worked great. I could see myself doing a dual boot for that, but not for stereoscopic. I want to do more of that. And almost by definition, I kind of want those to be shorter sessions than like regular gaming, because if I go way too long, I start getting motion sick. So if I have to dual boot for all that would be kind of a hassle. So it makes me question, well, wait a minute, if I'm having to dual boot, what am I doing on Linux that I can't do on Windows for my use case? And for me, probably a big one would be the GUI, but the GUI is kind of the icing on the cake. And, that's to get to the programs, really. So that in itself, while it's something I care about, that's not a good enough excuse to switch to Linux. For Linux, I would need to bring something else to the table for me that I'm not getting through Windows. For some people, there are things like that. Like security is a big one I know of, or like having real control of certain files. But for me, it's like what I'm getting from Windows seems to be okay. So, whereas what I'm losing from gaming and multimedia is a bigger ask. So, yeah, I'll end it. I'll end this question. I went on too long again. My line in the sand for when I'm straight up not going to be using Windows as like my primary operating system is two things. One is if updates are 100% mandatory and there's no way around it, because so they could just break things like, hey, let's fry your SSD with an update. Like, that's hardly their first mistake over the years that can cause real problems. And the other would be if it's just mandatory to be connected to the internet when you use it. If Windows gets to the point where those two things are true, and I think that some of that is kind of true for regular users, but not for power users. So, if you're really willing to dive deep into trying turning this stuff off, you can still. Even on Windows 11, though I've tested it on an earlier build. I haven't tested it lately. So, oh yeah, somebody's mentioned the chat. You can play the crew now. It got cracked. Somebody emailed me saying that server emulator does not work on Linux. So that's another example. Actually, another one I've heard of, I haven't tested it much myself, is apparently a lot of mods can have trouble working on Linux. Yeah, and one I know of, there was one that came to, probably the most frequent modding I'm doing for games overall is like enabling, like for real old games, widescreen, and for more modern games, like ultra wide. And one program that comes up a lot is flawless widescreen. And like, I was curious, does that work in Linux? And there was a thread, again, 2 years ago, so this might be outdated by now, but 2 years wasn't that long ago. This software's been out a while. And they were trying to get it working for God of War. Yeah, somebody said, the issue with flawless widescreen is you need wine and protein to run it. Each game has its own prefix for wine and proton. So in order for flawless widescreen to see the game, you need to run it in the same prefix. However, it's impossible because you cannot run two applications under the same prefix simultaneously. That might not be true, but now basically it won't work ever at the moment. They said, I've had to switch back to Windows to play games, and I've been there exclusively for HDR support as well. I don't care about HDR, so I can jettison that. But and then some guy got it working for that specific game, but not overall. Maybe that's no longer true now, but the point is that's another rabbit hole of troubleshooting you're going down, whereas on Windows, it's like, okay, install, check the box for the game you want to run. Okay, great, now we have widescreen. You just saved yourself hours of time, maybe. Assuming there is light at the end of that tunnel, so. Somebody's saying, why do you assume it's Linux's fault that the mod doesn't work? Well, it was, I mean, if it works, I'm going by hearsay on that. Okay, for the mods, I haven't spent a lot of time working, but the mod was designed for a game that was designed for Windows, so that would be the target audience. You know, I mean, it's like, what's the percentage of Linux gamers? It's like 2% maybe, or something around there. So that's a relatively safe assumption. Oh, okay, last comment I'll make on it, unless something else comes up. Someone in the reply here was saying, okay, yeah, two comments. For 98% of games, it works just fine. Okay, so for them, it's 2% of the games doesn't work. I'm probably I think I have enough cred now that I'm the sort of person where that number could be a lot higher for what I'm doing, because I really am going off the beaten path with a lot of games. So maybe it's 2% for him, but it's 30% for the games I'm trying to run for me that I'm having problems with. The thing I would want to end this on is, don't take any of this as me saying, no, Linux sucks and nobody should use it, stick to it. No, that's not it at all. Look, I keep waiting, basically, kind of that like Microsoft is going to drop the hammer and going to cross those lines for me. So I kind of look at Linux like a bomb shelter. You know, I don't want to live there if the bombs aren't falling, but if they're falling, you bet I would want to move to that. What I would probably do, okay, if let's say Windows 12 is like my nightmare scenario, and I just cannot use it as my primary operating system, I would probably move to, well, first off, I'll probably just keep using whatever the last version of Windows was for several years and ride it out and hope somebody else kind of forges more of a path for people wanting to migrate. The next question, the next thing I would probably do is I would probably move to Linux, and I would set up a kernel virtual machine, which I've heard is a hassle. I've heard it's kind of a pain to do that. Hopefully it gets easier years down the line when I'm ready to move to it. And I would I would have kind of a hierarchy here. I would set up two of them. One would be for whatever the last version of Windows was that I could run completely offline and not, just do it for anything that's going to be like a real pain to use Linux or modern version of Windows on. One would be whatever the modern version of Windows is that I have to connect online. And I would just treat that as like a thin client. Like I wouldn't put anything important on there. That would just be like, if it's like an online only game that only runs on modern Windows. Okay, fine. Like I'm not using it for anything important. And then I would probably, for things that run easily without a lot of fuss on Linux, I would probably use Linux for that. So like a web browser maybe, or listening to music, or maybe watching a video, depending on what kind of problems they run into. So that would be kind of like because I think the kernel virtual machine would probably have me covered. So that would be my plan down the line, but I would be a late adopter for Linux, I think. But at the same time, of course, I'm seeing Microsoft have more and more of a stranglehold on like usability on the desktop. So, you know, the more people that get on Linux, the better. Yeah. There was an old Onion article that said something like 100% of commuters agree other people should take public transportation so that there are less cars on the road. That's kind of how I feel about Linux. Like, yeah, I totally am for other people forging a path on Linux so that by the time I have to get there, it's a lot easier and better. So, and I am willing to. Yeah, I keep saying the last thing. I was gonna be quick. That was a lie. Looks like. I keep saying the last. What the? I lost my train of thought. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna be a late adopter. Oh yeah, for anti-cheat, I'm totally willing to give that up. That's a hostage I'm willing to pull the trigger on because I don't play. I do play those games, but not like lots of them, and I could jump through some hoops or maybe even use a separate system if I really wanted to play a game that was on that. If you want a killer, I'm a niche audience, so you should not aim towards me. But if you wanted a killer feature to really make me more interested in Linux, get more robust stereoscopic gaming in the Windows. So maybe because all this stuff is going through Wine or Proton, it gets easier to hook into the controls and render it in stereoscopic. So if I could play a lot of games in stereoscopic that I can't on Windows, oh yeah, I would. Man, that would be basically a carrot on a stick for me to get. If I'm not that might get me dual booting because then I would get the games I just can't run on Windows running on Linux and really set something up. So, but you shouldn't aim for that because that's already a niche audience for that anyway. Okay, I should move on to more things. Somebody's saying update on the GUI video. Windows is still absolute trash. Yeah, well, I mentioned that how Windows 11 is going to make it harder. That is something it's not going to happen this year, but yeah, maybe next year. I want to get the big thing holding me back is I want to showcase all this stuff I'm trying to do. And the real time sink on it is with trying to basically port over a theme to window blinds. If that's something you would want to help with, let me know. I mean, I would give you full credit. Depending on what you were doing, I might be able to pay for some of it, but probably not what you're worth. I was trying to adopt coming from Linux, the blue curve theme to window blinds. And the software is relatively straightforward, but there's like a lot of aspects to it where it's like I want to say simple but complicated. It's straightforward, but there's like many little parts to the user interface. So it's like, like, okay, if you hover over, like take a scroll bar. If that's one graphic, if you hover over it, that's a separate graphic. If you click on it, that's a separate graphic. And then you got to get the sizes right and that sort of thing. It's stuff like that. But, or maybe I could learn it and somebody could just help like adopt the graph. That's the other thing. DPI scaling. There's different graphics for that unless you want the whole thing blurry. So that's going to be kind of a time sink. And I haven't been able to get like full help on that, but I don't know. I have some ideas, but that's something that might take me a few weeks to come up with a theme I liked, and then so I could showcase it because I think window blinds is relatively solid software, but so many themes I think are trash. Like my subjective opinion on them. So I want one that like looks nice enough. The other stuff takes time too, but that's the bigger time sink for me. Is the window blinds theme. That's what's kind of holding it up. Okay. But yeah, I plan to show lots of stuff with mouse gestures. Try to get my hands dirty on the pie menu system, and talk about some other concepts I've seen since then that I think would be pretty interesting. I mean, they're not necessarily. I'm not sure if they'd be good ideas or not, but they're totally interesting and worth exploring. Is the way I look at them for GUI. Those are kind of my plans for the follow-up. Oh yeah, they're asking. Okay, quick answer to this one. They're saying, I sometimes wish I could clone myself so I could get more done. Imagine a scenario where that does happen and you have a clone that helps, but after 60 days, only one of you can be left alive. How would you convince him that that he should be the one to die? He believes he is the original Ross. He has all your memories and knowledge. Well, I wouldn't try to convince him. I mean, I would consider it. I would try to do an Underground Railroad scenario, get them to safety, because from my perspective, who cares who's the original? If we all have the same memories and we're identical in every other way, they may as well be the original. I would say vice versa with me. So I wouldn't have like this hierarchy where I'm more important because I'm the original if they're functionally identical to me in every way. So, and we would be on the same team, in other words. And then some of the follow-up questions got darker. I guess I'll kind of skip those because I don't think I'm going to have to deal with that. So, but yeah, no, I mean, I would try to get them to safety. Or they would try to get me to safety, you know? We could flip a coin on that. Or if they would do like genetic tests so that they would always, if the clone would always be more at risk, then we would both understand that, okay, they have to go there. But yeah, if you'd be real embarrassed if the clone Ross decided to kill you. Well, if that was the case, we would both be thinking the same thing. And we would both try to avoid that at all costs. But if we were like thrown into a deathmatch scenario, then it would be equal footing. I mean, it's, no, I mean, we would be on the same team. I wouldn't consider the clone as being worse or lesser than me in any way because it's me. I mean, it's, you know, the clone and I would be on the same team here. There's a question. I've got a similar question to this one before. What kind of mage would you be? Well, if I could pick, I want one that has dimensional magic. So, you know, I could open up portals to other worlds. That's the spell I want above all others. So I guess whatever school of magic gets me that. I guess, yeah, dimensional magic. So if I have that, everything else is just a bonus, you know. Let's see. Do you play any co-op games with the wife or friends? If so, what are your favorites? I haven't, man, it's been a long time since I've played one. We've discussed it, but I guess she hasn't really. It's weird. Like, I think she's kind of gun shy about it, but like she has interest in us doing co-op stuff, but it's never been coordinated. With friends, I think the last one I played is like years back. I played with Craig and Fred from Civil Protection, the voice actors. We were playing Serious Sam. I think the second encounter. But there are a few I'm interested in playing. One is Portal 2. I mean, I've played Portal 2, but I've heard the co-op is its own separate thing. So that'd be interesting. I'm interested in It Takes Two, which I feel like it's my duty to remind everyone the creator of that has made a public statement. Here, maybe somebody can pull up a link to it. Offering $1,000 to anyone who becomes bored with that game. So, I mean, I'm not sure I'd try to take him up on that, but I mean, he made that public and even doubled down on it. It's like, no, this isn't me just saying this. Like, you can make a headline out of it. Like, he was saying that in interviews. Like, so, I mean, I kind of keep pointing. I mean, the game looks like it has a lot going for it, but like, I feel like that's an awfully bold statement to be made. Yeah, there we go. Somebody pulled it up. Thanks. Yeah, let's see if we can get the quote from him. Let's see. He had a great quote on this where he was doubling down. Okay, here we go. Quote, "That's another thing I can guarantee with you. It Takes Two. It's impossible," and quote me on this, "to get tired of the game. You can put this as the headline. I can literally give $1,000 to anyone who says, oh, well, no, he said more than can, I think, in another statement. Oh, I'm tired of this game now because it doesn't surprise me. $1,000. I guarantee I'll give it to everyone who gets tired. Okay, that's a direct quote, but they have to be honest about it. Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, like I feel. So hey, I'd be interested in a lawyer weighing in on that. Yeah, that's a good article there. So hey, I'm not trying to give him a hard time. I just feel like that feels like it's crossing a line for your marketing. That's my only criticism of that. So I haven't played. Hey, the game looks interesting. I'm curious about playing it. I'm also curious about another game from same guy. I think a new one, was it Split Fiction? That looks pretty interesting also. So yeah, there's a. I don't think it'd be. I'm interested in those because those look like they have like big kind of fantastic worlds and maybe an interesting story. But I guess the co-op games I'd be probably most interested in that aren't that would be one where like really fun mechanics or funny situations kind of emerge from them, I guess. I think there was one, geez, I forget the name of it, where it's like kind of like you were going and investigating horrors, but then things go wrong. It had kind of like muted color palette graphics, which I wasn't crazy about, but apparently a lot of people liked it. I'd recognize the name if I saw it. But somebody's mentioning Magica. I played a little bit of Magica, but it was only solo. I don't really like the ones where it's co-op, but it doesn't really need to be, where it's just like, oh, okay, you're both playing, and then this other person will press the button. Oh, you both press the button. All right, now you can go. I mean, yeah, come on, that's kind of weak. But yeah, I'm interested in those because they both have big fan. Well, Portal 2, the co-op I'm sure has entertaining commentary, but no, I'm way behind on that. But I could. It's harder to coordinate with people for co-op, I guess, is the reason. I tend to be pretty busy, but no, it can be fun. In fact, I probably prefer that to a lot of competitive ones, because with competitive ones, you need to usually need to develop like a certain skill level to really get into it. But yeah, okay. Have you written the script for the movie? It's like yes and no. It's like 3/4 written. Like a lot of the scenes are fleshed out, but there's some I kind of feel like need some more rework and plot adjustment. If I just carved out time for it, I could do it. I haven't focused. I've got enough down that I'm comfortable with where it is, that once I really start going, I know I can finish it. What worries me a lot more are the technical aspects of like getting like facial motion capture and just getting the pipeline set up for like for Unreal. Yeah, facial motion capture and just like kind of automated shortcuts, like for example, like in Source SDK, you can just tell an NPC, okay, walk here, now walk there, and then walk there, and it'll look pretty good. But those tools, I'm gonna have to kind of look them up for Unreal and like kind of get processes down so I can take as many shortcuts as possible. So those are the parts that are kind of have me concerned. But the ending to the movie, it's okay, but that's the part I feel like needs the most help. And I'm trying to think. It could be like I can live with it, but I feel like it could be better. But it's tricky to figure it out. But so many other scenes I'm so happy with. So I'm working out. But I think like the ending's the part that probably needs the most work. And just kind of connecting some plot points together, that takes some time. But let's see. Oh, I didn't see this one. Let's see. Oh wait, no, I did. Okay, they're saying someone's really analyzing Freeman's mind lore here. They're saying in episode 8, when Freeman first encounters the ceiling turret and nearly gets shot, he sees a cowering scientist and asks him, "You okay?" before clarifying, I don't care. Does that mean one of the following? And they give answers. His first instinct is empathy, asking a fellow human if they're okay before putting his main sociopathic persona on the front. perhaps realizing the unarmed scientist is of no use to him. I don't know if I'd say Freeman's a sociopath exactly, but and the other option is there was no actual honest meaning of intent in the first question. It was just a phatic expression, an automatic sentence Freeman has learned as a social convention kind of thing. He then merely clarifies. Okay, I'd say it's actually neither. First and foremost, it's me just trying to have something funny, but I probably was in a certain like thought process for it, and I think the thought process is Freeman can just his emotional state just changed that fast. You know, it's like he. So it's not that he's a sociopath; it's that he's like, you know, like say you decide you like want to eat Mexican, they say no, I want pizza. It's like that, except he did that with like him wanting to, but then like more variables came into mind. It's like, oh yeah, I should probably help him. Like, no, wait a minute, I'm trying to survive. What the hell am I doing? Like it's kind of like that. It's not. I mean, I don't think that's sociopathic exactly. It's like nuanced. It's more like it's what? It's just he's moody, like, and the fact that in this mood he's not really gonna think that much about like what happens to this guy, and this other mood he is. So it's you see, it's not. It's definitely not this cold, calculated thing at all. It's more just his mood changed, and it's like, okay, well, bye. You know, I'm trying. Man, there's an analogy to this I'm thinking of, but or he's yeah, he changed his mind. He changed his mind, and it happened that fast. Is that? I think that's the easiest answer I can give. So. Yeah, I think there'll probably be a different psychological disorder when you just change your mind so rapidly, you know, like so. But it was genuine in that moment, so yeah. And there's other things like that too, where his outlook changes depending on his mood. But I forget other examples. What does your wife do for work in Poland, and how did you meet her? Well, I met her because she was actually a fan of the videos. Well, actually, first she was genuinely, she didn't intend this as a pickup line, but even though it's a pretty common one, she was genuinely interested in what my like horoscope sign was. I figured, yeah, why not? I could tell her, but then that led to like some back and forth in email, and then we talked more. And then we started doing Skype video chats for a while. And then after a while, I didn't have much time me down at the time. I originally thought I would just like, okay, go for a visit and then see how it would go. But then she just kept, she was persistent. Like she just really wanted me to come to Poland and be with her. So I figured, okay, you know what? My friends during that time had kind of been moving out one after the other anyway. So I just didn't have much, I was earning income online. So I didn't have much time me down, so I figured, yeah, I'll just try moving there, and it pretty much worked out over time. So, currently she does not work because she's had a lot of like anxiety issues. But prior to that, she was kind of doing, I think she tried a few different jobs. The last one she worked at, she was kind of doing kind of clerical tasks. Like she according to her, they were having her do like some of everything. Where she was answering phones, but also preparing paperwork and also doing like some marketing stuff for the company. So it was different things. Okay, since people are asking my zodiac sign, I'm horoscope, I'm Capricorn, and under Chinese zodiac, I'm the dog. So let's see. Have you visited any of the Baltic countries like Latvia or Lithuania? No, I haven't had a chance to. I mean, it feels like I've been really busy most of the time I've been here, but I mean, I wouldn't mind doing it. Maybe eventually I'll get a vacation, but okay, I'm gonna start skipping some. Let's see. What are your thoughts on force feedback haptics? Have you ever had a wow moment with a haptic device? On my last gamepad, which ended up kind of screwing up with the drift, it, it wasn't really a well-known name brand. It was, I mean, it was impressive, but I, I forget what I was doing, but I think it might have even been Yuppie Psycho that I did, but or some other game, but there'd be like a door would shut and you would feel like a thump in the controller. It's kind of neat. I mean, I guess there's bumps with steering wheels, that sort of thing. It's the sort of thing where, for me personally, I find it just kind of gimmicky. And like, yeah, it adds to immersion a little bit, but it doesn't really make much of a difference. My current gamepad doesn't have it, and I don't really care about it. And in fact, for some effects, I think there was one game I played where like every time I went to a menu, it would buzz, and I started finding that annoying. But it's okay. I mean, I kind of, yeah. For me personally, it's gimmicky. It can be fun in short bursts, but I think like over like the long haul, I find it like a little more annoying than anything else. So I can, in fact, I'm pretty sure some people look at that as like stereoscopic with me. That's not how stereoscopic gaming is for me. For me, that just, all right, I'm in another world. Like, yeah, I want to look at everything. And that doesn't really get old with me. Though for some gameplay types, I don't want it because it would get me sick. But I'm not really into it, but I could see where people would really like that, especially for like steering wheels or maybe like flying games. Okay. Oh yeah. Do you think the predictions about AI replacing 99% of jobs is accurate, or do you think a lot of content creators and academics are cashing in on doom scroller clicks? Well, for the first part, no. For the second part, they could be, or they might be. They could be true believers. I mean, just because they're making video on it doesn't mean they don't believe what they're saying. You know. In fact, I think I'm even less optimistic about it now because, one factor I point to a lot is McDonald's tried that for their menus, and it screwed up too many orders that they decided to retire it. And I'm thinking, if that's not good enough for McDonald's getting the order right, that's pretty rough. Because I remember, like as a kid, like I've mentioned before, I used to think I was a picky eater until I learned I hate vinegar. And the thing is, all kinds of sauces use vinegar. And once I learned that, like I liked all kinds of foods. But so I remember out of all the fast food places, McDonald's would have the worst for getting the order right. So if I'd ask them for like, no mustard and ketchup, I would give them a 2/3 chance they're going to get that right. And then there's that 1/3, nope, they'd screw it up. They just wouldn't care. So, yeah, I think there was a recent one. I think it might have been Burger King. They tried it and it managed to order like 18,000 cups of water or something. So, like, I think if it's, you got to look at like what the failure rate is and if it's going to be a catastrophic failure. So if like 98% or something is fine, and if it screws up, it's not a tragedy, then yeah, those kinds of jobs would be at risk. But if having a really accurate performance is really important and you can't have a catastrophic failure, then AI, I don't think it's going to replace them really over the long term. Another example I mentioned that I think AI would be great for would be for weeding, where like if you have like rows and rows of crops, apparently there's software that can like identify, okay, is this like a potato plant or is this a weed? And if it thinks it's a weed, it'll use a little rolling robot drone to pull it out. Well, okay, let's say it gets 2% of those wrong and it's pulling out potato plants too. Well, 2% less yield versus, not having to hire a bunch of people to pull that up. Yeah, I could see that as being worth it because I think that's a good use of it. I'm not. I don't. I'm obviously not happy. Well, yes and no. I'm not happy for anyone losing their job, but at the same time, I don't want people having crap jobs if it's not necessary either. And waiting all day sounds like not the most fun job. So, but at the same, that kind of shines a flashlight on the issue. Like, okay, what do you do if you have too many people who need to support themselves and there's not enough jobs for them? And I really think I'd really like to see more civilizations trying to address that question. So, but obviously that sucks for them in the meantime if they need work and they don't have it. So we're really trying to, I feel like almost every major civilization is trying to avoid the answer to that question as long as they can. Like, I feel like almost every major society, it's not set up for this and they're just trying to avoid it as much as possible, or just have band-aid solutions as much as possible. So, but no, in fact, I think my confidence. Oh yeah, I think there was an MIT study not long ago that showed like what 95% of investments in AI don't have a return on investment. So they're not profitable and they're not likely to be profitable. So yeah, there's speculation AI could be like the next .com bubble, which yeah, I think it probably is. You know, where you have a few that make it and have good elements to it, but then like the vast majority are the pets.com. So, but the thing is, so much money has been dumped into it, it might crash the economy. So having that the chickens come home to roost on it. So yeah, interesting times ahead. But if that doesn't crash the economy, I could see something else crashing it. So. You tell me what that ends up looking like, because there's so many variables at play now. Oh yeah, a comment was saying for the Veil of Darkness episode, you could ask the monk to just give the cup back after the resurrection. Could you show this in the next follow-up episode? No, I wasn't planning to. I mean, maybe I can mention it, but that's more. I'll tell you why though. If it was something really interesting that I missed, then yeah, I'd probably go out of my way to do it. But that just sounds like it's going to be a tamer situation than what I thought was the reality, where he just keeps it, period. So I'm not trying to 100% these games, but if it's something like major that I missed that's really worth talking about, then that would make it into a follow-up episode. But yeah, I need to figure out when the follow-up episode is. I might screw with the order again on things. Sorry, but it's on the horizon for sure. Oh yeah, I'm skipping a few more questions. Feel free to put suggestions in the chat. What's the most grindy game you've enjoyed and found yourself playing a lot of? Things like survival games, MMOs, sim management, etc. Well, the thing is, for a game to be grindy and for me to keep playing it and not resent, yeah, somebody's suggesting aside from Path of Exile and the Secret World, see, those aren't even good examples, because those both have kind of like a love-hate relationship with them because of the grind. You know, it's like I kind of resent some of the grind in Path of Exile, and I definitely don't enjoy the grind in the Secret World because I don't really enjoy that kind of combat. Okay, so people are saying Albion Online, Factorio. I still need to play more of Factorio to see if I get into it or not. Factorio is one of those where, like I have to. I feel like I haven't played enough to give it an honest assessment of it. But I mean, well, I kind of mentioned it in the episode if it counts or not, but Dungeon Siege, I love that. I mean, yeah, because you can call, yeah, you're just beating enemies to death over and over and over again, but I loved it. So yeah, like you could call that grindy and you're the whole game's a grind. but I loved all of it. So let's see. I'm trying to, like, I guess you could argue. See, I don't know. See, I've become more sensitive to that even in action RPGs because I kind of like the grind in the original Diablo, less so in Diablo 2. Definitely less so. Yeah, because in the original Diablo, the enemies don't respawn. Like, that's a big factor for it. Like, if the enemies are respawning, I don't like the grind that much. But if you just keep moving forward and there's just a ton of enemies to fight, it can be fun. I mean, not always. It can still be screwed up, but let's see. What's another one where there's like not, where the enemies aren't respawning? Yeah, I don't know. I would say maybe if it counts or not, you can maybe make the argument that what they are billions, or maybe Supreme Commander even to that extent, have some grind to them because you get to a mission like yeah, you have a long path ahead of you, like a new level where it's like okay, I'm gonna because you are kind of rebuilding your base kind of between each level, and you know, building up your economy, building your defenses. So you are kind of doing the same thing over and over again, but the and it gets on a bigger and bigger scale, but those are paced in such a way that I'm still enjoying that process because I'm thinking like, oh boy, man, I've got a real, you know, army of the undead after me this time, or just a gigantic army of robots coming for me. So yeah, so that one's yeah. I don't know if you call those grindy or not, but if those are grindy, yeah, I do enjoy the grind on those. Um, there's actually, if it's done well, I actually enjoy. I don't know if you would call this like guilty pleasure or not, but like Vampire Survivors and those kinds of clones, if they're done well, I don't mind the grind on those because it's like okay, now we're getting up to because you could say if it's just the same thing over and over again, I can handle a little bit of that as long as it leads to a progression. Like you know, okay, now I've unlocked the next map or something like that. But yeah, see, somebody's mentioning Sacred, but Sacred's another one where I can't remember if they respawn, but they do like they match your level, and I don't like that in Sacred. Like I remember it always feeling like I was on a treadmill, or if anything, I would sometimes like fall behind. So yeah, like Oblivion kind of like vanilla Oblivion kind of has that problem too, where you know if you're maximizing the wrong skills, it's like to me it's so much more satisfying to like kind of level up and be able to handle like what Gothic did. You know, but if you start heading towards like the farther corners of the map, then you're getting into bigger enemies that you might not be able to handle. So you're having that man Gothic got replaying that for the game dungeon. Its pacing is so good. Like it's just I want more games to copy that kind of pacing. Yeah, even with respawning, because it did have some respawning, but it's like I like that idea actually. Even if like if it was too open ended to have it be based off of plot points, have like you clear out the enemies, but then maybe afterwards there's respawning, but there's only like 5% as much or 10% as much. So then it still feels like the world is kind of alive, but it also feels like, yeah, you kind of did a lot clearing through all these monsters. Like, I can't even think of another game that's done that, where by clearing through the enemies, you basically eliminate 90% of respawning, or 90% or more. And I think that's worth copying. I mean, like that feels so much better to me than just like respawning constantly. So because respawning constantly kind of kills your sense of progression. So it's just like, yeah, I mentioned in Martian Gothic, it's like you're just wading through a swamp, like you know, trying to go from one end to the other because everything keeps respawning. You know, so I have not played Tetris Effect, but Yeah, psychedelic Tetris. I don't know. Tetris is like kind of okay for me, but I feel like there's better competition for me now. There was a game I wanted, like if there was like a really cool twist at Tetris, then I could. Hey, I've heard. I haven't played it, and I'm not that interested in it because I'm not really into like poker. But I've heard other games copying Balatro's style, like the roguelike. If there was a Tetris roguelike, okay, that could maybe draw me in. I could see that. Like I want a twist to Tetris to make it to give more of a sense of progression because I don't care about the score now. So yeah, that could be interesting. A Tetris roguelike. How do you feel about procedurally generated environments like No Man's Sky, especially now that it's had years of multiple universe resets? Well, I haven't played it. The thing for No Man's Sky is, for me, with me and No Man's Sky, for a game like that, I feel like I really want like some sort of plot I'm unfolding or like a mystery I'm unraveling. And I'm going to all these planets as like part of the process. And I feel like it's much more of like a sandbox thing where you can kind of see new things, but it's procedurally generated, so maybe it doesn't have quite the same magic to it. But it sounds like it's building up more and more reasons for you to have that kind of sense of mystery to it. Or it doesn't have to be mystery, but like it could be like, okay, you could go to a new planet and then there's all this new stuff to discover. Like, you know, you talk with people or you go do some missions and it just kind of feels kind of like alive, you know, that sort of thing. No Man's Sky strikes me as this sort of thing where it's a work in progress and it keeps getting better and better. But it sounds like it's the sort of game where the longer I wait, the better it's going to get. So, but for procedurally generated in general, I feel like it's good as like a complementary aspect. So like but like, cause you know, like say you have a game that's like real linear, you know, you're just going from point A to point B and it's neat, but like the world looks really cool. And you ever think like, man, it'd be so cool if I could just like, you know, hop over the wall and see more of this. I feel like procedurally generated could be cool for that. Like in Trackmania, you know, you have the main courses, but if you want, yeah, you can just get off the course and just keep driving. I feel like procedurally generated could be kind of neat for something like that, where if it's just the main thing, I don't know. I love Diablo 1 and Diablo games. If anything, the Diablo games have become less procedurally generated than the original, where it's procedurally generated, but it's different each time, but you're still going from like this environment to the next, and it kind of works out. There are some games like that. Yeah, where there's still definitely a vision with the environment, but they're using the procedurally generated to kind of do a remix. And yeah, I think I've mentioned before, something Path of Exile could do that would kind of rope me back in, I'm pretty sure, is one of the reasons I stopped playing was because I feel like I've seen the same thing over and over again, especially with the maps, where they're technically procedurally generated, but I know if this map, okay, there's always gonna be an exit on this side, there's always gonna be a lake in the middle of this part, and like it's always gonna turn these ways. So even though it's procedurally generated, it's still pretty following a script quite a bit. Whereas if I felt like this could just be more like Minecraft level procedurally generated, then maybe I could play the map 20 times and not see something really cool, but then 5% of the time I'm gonna run into like this really mystical looking area, and it's not even like a gameplay thing, it's just variety in the visuals. Then like, yeah, that would probably draw me back in and give me incentive to keep playing. And knowing Path of Exile, they would probably have some mechanic letting you influence just how much it's procedurally generated. And, you know, have some drop some currency to affect that or something like that. So I think it has potential, but I don't think you should give it the I don't think you should give it the driver's seat for the games that I like, but it can absolutely complement games. I think that's the best way to look at it. Okay. Okay, somebody's asking about Two Worlds. That one might get a game dungeon eventually. I'll see. Yeah, I've played it. They were, I guess, like just some quick thoughts on it were, the gameplay is utterly broken in terms of difficulty. I won't elaborate on that. If I save that for a video, they were saying, like, there was compared to Oblivion at the time. Look, hey, feel free to challenge me on this. I think Two Worlds, if we're just looking at the world map, I think it has a better environment than Oblivion. I mean, even in Skyrim, really, even though it's well defined, the world map is awesome for Two Worlds. The story is kind of on like what it's like in so bad it's good territory with like the voice acting and the story. Yeah, it's an oddity, but it's absolutely aspects of it worth playing. So, okay, I've talked so much about the other stuff. I'm trying to run through more of these. Okay, skipping more questions that I don't have great answers to. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna skip some more. Have you ever been into pro wrestling as a kid or teenager? Not really. I think what it is, yeah, I'm probably lacking the vocabulary for this. What it is even as a kid, I could tell the difference between someone who looks like they're like really wrestling versus something that's like really staged. Because I don't mean to, I'm in no way trying to discredit how much how physically tough and physically demanding it is to do like pro wrestling, but at the same time it is staged. It looks so fake to me, and it's hard for me to kind of suspend my disbelief on it. Whereas if somebody's actually just getting down and wrestling, that's like a lot more exciting to me. And the thing is, if it was fake but it looked like it was like a real wrestling thing, that would get it too. But I don't know. It just lacked me connecting to it, so I never really got into it. Yeah, I think I mentioned before, I know far more about pro wrestlers from movies than from actual pro wrestling. So, ones like, Hulk Hogan or Jesse Ventura, Andre the Giant, Rowdy Roddy Piper, or The Rock's been in like a million movies. Like, so, or yeah, John Cena. Like, so I definitely I've come across some exposure to like pro wrestlers from movies, but I've seen a few clips from pro wrestling. Like there was one I saw where they did like this big body slam that I thought was funny, and then they collapsed the ring that was on top of it to make it look like that they just broke everything. That was, yeah. If it's funny, I'll watch clips of it for sure. Yeah, I think there was another one where they had RoboCop come and like they had a wrestler in a cage, and then RoboCop walks up and like tears open the cage, a metal cage for it. But yeah, I mean, I'm all for like kind of over the top fun stuff. It's just like I don't know, my brain's just constantly going, oh my god, this is so fake, So if it's going purely into comedy, then it becomes fun again for me. But if it's like if they're trying to make it more serious, but then I can just see they're just staggering around like the finish him sequence in Mortal Kombat. It's like, yeah, nobody does that. Like so. Oh yeah, Spider-Man. Oh yeah, who was? Yeah, it was a Macho Man Randy Savage, what wasn't he in Spider-Man? Like the original? Or the geez, there's been a lot of Spider-Mans. But yeah, the first big one. But yeah, no, if there are pro wrestling, I don't hate it at all. But yeah, if there's pro wrestling clips you think I need to see, yeah, you can send them to me. Yeah, I think that I would like a best of pro wrestling. Yeah, even yeah, like I've seen some clips where they're like trash talking to the cameras. So even though some of those can be fun, like yeah, like I saw one of Roddy Piper. That was enjoyable. You know, where they're just going all in on. Yeah. So the funnier it is, the more likely I am to like it. I think that's kind of the rule of thumb for me for pro wrestling, or if it just looks real. I mean, obviously the physical acts are real, but if like the actual wrestling looks real, then I'm more likely to like it. So, okay, I'm skipping questions. I don't have great answers. Well, someone's saying, do you like birds? I like their presence and part of the ecosystem, but I don't really have, you know, I'm not like a maniac about them or anything, but, you know, I like their presence in general in the forest. I think the only bird I really have problems with, which haven't been a problem living in Poland, but in Virginia it sure could be, are whippoorwills, which are like the whippoorwill, and they just do it forever and you can't sleep. So, no, I'm all for birds existing. Do I have a favorite kind of bird? Well, I mean, I like the goth association of like ravens and crows, but let's see, or some other birds I like. I don't know. It's like I almost look at them as just like part of the environment. So if I was in a tropical environment, I would like things like, you know, toucans or parakeets, or you know, if it was something by the sea, you want to see seagulls, or maybe sea falcon or something like that. In the city, I like the presence of pigeons. Yeah, somebody's mentioning eagle in the mountains. So yeah, like I almost look at them as like part of the environment. So I feel like the environment is like less rich without certain birds around for what's appropriate. I'm trying to think if I have any like favorites though. I've seen a few funny clips of like penguins falling down on the ice. Or yeah, kiwis look interesting. Kiwis are kind of neat seeing in action. Or there's like that. Geez, I forget what it's even called. It's like that big ostrich-like bird. I think it's like in Australia. That it almost looks like it's a dinosaur. I don't think it's an emu exactly, but yeah. In general, I'm fine with birds. Is that an emu? I think there was another one. Let's see. Cassowary. That's what I'm thinking of. Thank you. Yeah. So that's kind of exotic. Yeah, and if you've ever looked, I've seen an ostrich before in like this kind of open zoo. If you've ever looked at the foot of an ostrich, and I bet several other birds, you can tell like, oh yeah, these probably are evolved from dinosaurs. Like, an ostrich foot looks like that, but. Yeah, I guess if I had to pick besides crow and raven, I guess a runner-up might be kiwi, just because they look so funny running around. So let's see. All right. Okay, I'm gonna skip some more. Or some I already answered. When someone's asking what happened to Gorilla Gong, it just never was able to really take off. So it's kind of just in an archive state. I'm kind of upset because I've lost some of the YouTubers took down their videos, and I've lost some links to them. I should have backed some of them up. I think it was a funny one. It was a Halo one. It might have been called Practical Nonsense, but I think there was only like a few left up there. But there was a funny one where this, maybe somebody knows what I'm talking about. Where it's like this skit where this guy is at a gas station, doesn't really like his job, but I think he was like selling drugs on the side, and then like these customers keep coming up, or no, he might have been like hustling this guy to sell drugs for him on the side, and then this guy keeps driving up. It's like, I'm late for an appointment. Is it done yet? And then it was kind of funny and surreal, and I'd say it's like it's competitive with like what you'd expect from like the best of Red versus Blue. I think it might have been called Practical Nonsense, but I'm not sure. But yeah, if you know what I'm talking about, have a link, or better yet, have a backup. By all means, send it to me. But yeah, there were some other good best of that I kind of wish I kept track of. But maybe it's possible to pull some of the links through Wayback Machine. But it felt like there was a transition, and I'd stopped being in charge of it, like, and then somebody else took over, and we might have lost some links in the process. Have I heard the Project Zomboid soundtrack? A little bit. I remember it being good. I need to. That's one I need to kind of throw time into. I'm still really looking forward to it. Okay, I'm skipping some more. Oh yeah, wow, I'm only halfway down the page. I really need to skip more of them. Okay. Well, someone's asking if I would consider experimenting with a third main series after the movie Freeman's Maya Game Dungeon. I don't have plans for one, but I could see myself doing kind of a, I guess, I'd rather do if I got the animation like really nailed down. I was getting a lot of help, so it wasn't such a time sink. I could see myself doing like sort of like a narrative one. So you know something like Civil Protection. But okay, skipping more. Some of these I'm skipping. The rule of thumb is I feel like I don't have a very good answer for, or some of these are the ones that have been asked in previous video chats. So you guys need to get more votes if you want me to answer it again. This is exactly why I don't prioritize the live chat ones. So, okay, skipping more and more. But, oh yeah, okay, I'll do a speed run this one. They're asking if I've played these games or considered doing a game dungeon. Some of them I've considered, yes. I won't see which ones. Somebody's asking The Void. I played like 5 minutes of it. I meant to come back to it, but I haven't done that yet. Precursors, played some more of that. I might try to finish that one. Drowned God, I played a little bit of it, but I didn't want to finish it. The whole vibe of it just kind of felt depressing to me. Nocturne, I've played 2 of the episodes of. I think I didn't finish the werewolf one on the train. I just got distracted and never came back to it. I finished the vampire one. I think I finished, was the other one the zombie one? I forget. I still need to play the first Blair Witch one, which is based on the game engine. I played the second one, and then I haven't played the third one. Obsidian, I've played a little bit of. I definitely want to get back to that one. That one was feeling promising to me. Temujin, I have not played at all. I guess I could look into that. Moment of Silence, I played all the way. That one could maybe get a game dungeon. In fact, I can't remember if I used music from that in one of the episodes in another video. Art of Murder Trilogy, I haven't played. I don't know anything about that one. Vaki, Kosmichna Rozgrivka. Has no English translation. Cartoon, sci-fi, comedy, adventure game. Okay, maybe I could wheel out that translator thing if I forget how that worked. If you need to have an existing template for it or not. Maybe I could wheel out that translator software if I like the premise too. See, I was interested in the cave world saga just on the premise. It was interesting. Like, okay, he's a space trucker, but we're going to an underground world and another planet. Yeah, and it has good VGA graphics. Yeah, let's. I was intrigued. So. Have you tested the GOG preservation program any? I'm guessing Deus Ex is now playable right after installation. No, I haven't actually, because to me that's I could be wrong. I haven't looked into it much, but to me that struck me as kind of superfluous because a lot of those games are like the real well-known ones. And I figure the more well-known a game is, the more the community solutions tend to pop up. Like Warcraft 2 was on there. And you mentioned Deus Ex. Well, there's already a pretty great wrapper for Deus Ex for DirectX 10. And actually, I think, geez, it might even be done by now. Well, I know somebody was working on kind of a modern update for it, and he was adding VR, like full VR support for it. So if I was to replay that again, well, one, I probably want to play that first, but depending on the job. Yeah, he was changing the lighting something, but it looked like it was pretty tasteful what he was doing. I forget the name of it, but I would probably want to play that first, but barring that, I would want to play that in stereoscopic. And sometimes with how this works with stereoscopic, sometimes having an older version is better for stereoscopic because then the compatibility might not work on the newer one. That's actually something I'm a little worried about with the Crew because one of the mods I saw was to convert the rendering into Vulkan, I think. And there's a VorpX profile for running it in stereoscopic on the base game, which I think is DirectX 11. But if it's rendering, for rendering it in Vulkan, and the Vulkan fixed a lot of the micro stutter in the game, which that's a very desirable feature. But if it's rendering it in Vulkan, that means the VorpX profile won't hook necessarily into the game anymore, and then that means I can't run it in stereoscopic. So, man, it's kind of precarious getting these games working. But man, we'll see what happens. Let's see. Okay, I'll get to live. I'm gonna look through some more stuff. Let's see. As not a lawyer, what are the odds the initiative can also touch games that exist today? Okay, I think there's only... Okay, there's two possibilities that I can see for that. One is like the initiative is not retroactive, but if there's a possibility that the games do not get grandfathered in, which means take something like, let's say Helldivers 2. Okay, it's selling today, but let's say this goes into effect 2028 or something like that. If they're still selling copies of Helldivers 2, well, then they're on the hook for that game. If they stop selling it before that date, they're not. So any company that would be, if they're not grandfathered in, although I think the industry would push to have it, that would lead to less chaos, I think, then they would still be on the hook. So that would affect games that are out today if they're still operating at that date. That's one possible scenario. The second would not be related to the initiative. The initiative cannot accomplish more than that. But if you recall, we submitted submitted complaints on the Crew to multiple consumer protection agencies. If they find that this is not lawful, what's been going on, then these companies have been breaking the law this entire time. Now, realistically, so that means the law wouldn't even be retroactive. It would just be that it was never enforced up until this point, because that would mean that this was always the law. It was just never defined clearly. So if they really wanted to, they probably could throw the book at a company that screwed customers on this in the past, but it's just that that's this thing. The companies just did this and the law never weighed in on it. It could have been always against the law this entire time. Now, realistically, I think if that happened, I think there would only be a couple cases, if any, where fans were really upset that they didn't. A lot of fans were really upset that they lost this game, and they managed to organize together and send all these complaints to the consumer agency. So, like, let's say, what is it? Well, I think that might have a server emulator now. I'm not sure. I don't know. Let's say Asheron's Call. let's say as soon as they hear that, they're like, damn right, we're upset about that. We're sending a complaint to this company. Or, well, now there's Anthem, I guess. Maybe they're upset at Anthem for other reasons, and then they're just using it. So yes, that is a possible path to retroactive enforcement, but that cannot happen through the initiative. It's not even our choice to have it be retroactive or not for the initiative. That's just how they're structured. So yeah, so those are the only two ways I can see that that affects games that are out today. If they want to keep selling after that date, then and there aren't provisions for grandfathering in, which I think the industry is going to push back against every single thing we propose. So I mean that's been the pattern so far. So those are the only two. Okay, should keep moving on to the questions. Let's see. Oh yeah, are you at all worried about the situation with Russian drones over Poland? Could it lead to videos on hold if on your end if things escalate? If that were to escalate to the point where it would put the videos on hold, then we've had bigger problems, and not just in Poland. I'm cautiously optimistic. Like I've only heard two theories that make sense on that. The two I've heard are one, it is just a screw up. Because I think that was out of it was like 15 or something drones out of like hundreds that did not go there. So maybe it was just a screw up on orders. The other, I mean, it's just speculative, is that they're trying to like test things to maybe draw more resources away from Ukraine. But I probably shouldn't get into this topic too much. This is one that can get a little more charged on YouTube. There was another question like that I was going to clarify at least. I wasn't going to give an answer, but I could clarify it. That seems like... Oh, okay. I'm skipping some more. Yes, I have played Fear. I've only played a little bit of the second one, but yeah, Fear is awesome. I can't remember if I played some of the expansion, but wasn't getting into it quite as much. No, I think I played through all of the first one. I don't know if I played the second expansion though, and I haven't played 3. So, are there any good VR mods for flat screen games you've tried recently? Actually, that's something I'm still working out. Yeah, I have messed around with them. Pretty much any Unreal engine, any Unreal 4 and 5 engine game, you're likely to get really good VR. Problem I've run into is performance. I'm still trying to flesh that out, but I tested it on, on Ghost Runner, on another game that I tried out. It was so-so, but it wasn't great, but it wasn't awful. It's called The Gunk. That worked for that too. And another game that's not Unreal, but I got a mod working for it that I'm also I probably need to upgrade, but that gets complicated. That I tried for was Cloudpunk. And yeah, I for sure want to play that in VR. And yeah, it was working all right, but the performance is kind of rough on it again. There's lots, I'd say a lot of games that have VR. Right now, what I've been playing that I can handle the performance on in VR, it's not there is a VR mod for it, but I couldn't get it to work. Sorry. So there's some points, some of these points where I'm pausing. It's like I'm feeling something that halfway feels like a hiccup, but I'm not catching my breath. So I'm just kind of like dazed for like 2 seconds. Quake 2, where there is a VR mod for it, I could not get it to work. I don't know, but I'm not on Oculus either. But so what I ended up doing is I have gotten very good stereoscopic 3D working through Vorpex on the Enhanced Edition. And to me, the #1 feature that the Enhanced Edition has over the originals is there's this compass button where if you're like, where the hell do I go now? Then this 3D map comes on, or this 3D marker comes on, and it'll just have these arrows pointing to like which door you need to go to. I'm thinking like, oh, the original Quake 2 needs that. Like, so I've been playing Quake 2 in VR. And yeah, it's pretty good. In stereoscopic, so it's not full VR, but it's like 90%, you know. So yeah, I'm kind of. Well, okay, I'll talk more about that. I don't want to go too long about the questions, but yeah, somebody's mentioning Cyberpunk 20. Well, I guess one thing I'll talk about the upgrading. Okay, so maybe somebody has some insight on this. I don't want to upgrade to a newer NVIDIA card because I don't trust that damn connector at all, the 12-volt high power one, because I'm sure, I feel confident it would probably last for 6 months, but 6 years? I don't know, man. I think they might melt. I keep seeing stories. And I was looking, now I would go to, I don't know if there's a big enough jump that I would want to go to AMD yet, but the only thing holding me back from AMD is like CUDA support. And I think there's a wrapper for that, but then the legality of it got mixed up, so it might not be the most compatible thing. Like if I didn't have to have CUDA support, I don't see a reason not from. There's some old games that lack some anti-aliasing options, but I can maybe run that on a secondary system if I needed to record it for Game Dungeon. But yeah, so I don't know. At some point, I could see going to AMD. I was looking at upgrading my CPU because I'm still on the AMD 3000 series. But I was looking at it and I wasn't liking what I was seeing. Like on the 9000 series, there are a lot of reports of ASRock motherboards frying the CPU. Now, if it was just a matter of avoid ASRock, okay, that's fine. You know, there's other brands. But the problem is it's much less, but there are reports of them also frying CPUs for MSI, Gigabyte, and Asus. And it really sounds like what's going on is there's some mix-up with the power settings and it might have even been what AMD officially released. So, and like this one guy did a video on it. I forget his name. If I find it, I'll put a link to the description of it. But he was speculating that maybe the voltage is just too high, and it could be the sort of thing where ASRock is just the canary in the coal mine, where they're frying them first, but it's going to be frying these others over a long period of time. Because there's several reports of just like, yeah, it worked great for 3 or 4 months, and then it fried. And some of it's related to like overclocking, which that would be fine because I don't plan to overclock anything. But then there's others that are saying they didn't overclock anything. It's like it might need more time to pan out. Yeah, somebody's saying go for a Gigabyte. I feel like if I had to upgrade today for motherboards, it probably, because I'm on AM4, I would probably get a Gigabyte one. But I don't know. I kind of want. See, that's the thing. The other thing is, it's not completely known what's causing this, and that makes me nervous. So, best case scenario, this was a problem on several motherboards, but they did like a stealth update, and they didn't tell people what was going on, and that fixed the power, that fixed like the voltage and the amperage settings, so that now it's no longer a problem. And then of course, if I was going to go to Intel, like the 13th and 14th generation have had multiple problems with frying too. Man, frying CPUs is kind of new for me. Like the last time I was like kind of at risk of frying a CPU was in the 90s when I was trying to overclock a Celeron 300A because I was overclocking. Like, okay, if you're overclocking and you fry a CPU, okay, fair enough, you know, but I am not used to CPUs getting fried from stock settings. So, so I'm saying Ross is not the kind to play Silk Song. Well, I played a hell of a lot of Hollow Knight. I played like 90% of Hollow Knight because Hollow Knight, it kind of feels like an exponential curve in difficulty. And I was able to climb up quite a bit and go through several bosses. And I actually got confused and what I actually got confused, and apparently I could have beaten the game and I didn't realize it, but I kept going along these other paths. And I think the part where I just hit a wall was this Manus boss on the second time, or like the second time through the gardens or something like that. But with Silk Song, I've heard is a lot harder, but I've heard that it's so hard that like mods are popping up all over the place. So yeah, I could play Silk Song with mods. Yeah, just I don't really enjoy like super hard games. If there's a mod that ratchets it down to like let's say Super Metroid difficulty, sure. I wouldn't. I mean, I can handle harder, but I don't really like enjoy harder. So with platformers. But yeah, yeah, I like Super Metroid difficulty. I can go a little harder. Like what's the hardest? I'm trying to think of like what's the hardest platformer I've beaten. I got to hell in Super Meat Boy, but I didn't. I was ready to kind of quit by that point. Let's see, but no, I'm interested in Silk Song. I'm just not in a rush. I'll wait for like the refined normie gamer normie gamer mod for it, you know. Let's see, but yeah, so for hardware, it's like I have less confidence in the modern generation for long-term stability. So I don't know what's going on there. Though let's see, what else was I gonna, okay, I lost my train of thought, so I should keep going with questions. Oh, you're saying, what can we do to keep helping, or just put more info, or who we can talk to, or send more pressure? Okay, yeah, shoot, I should. Unfortunately, it's still kind of dependent on where you live or what your citizenship is for who can help. Number one things that people can do to help, just generally, or depending on where you live, is reaching out to members of European Parliament, letting them know you support the initiative, or for the Digital Fairness Act, saying like, yeah, you would like this issue added to the Digital Fairness Act. Either one, you know. So the Stop Destroying Video Games initiative, you would like them to support it. That's one, or get at. So that's for people who live in the EU or citizens of the EU. For the UK, my standards are much lower, but contact, at this point, it's pessimistic enough. I would contact members of parliament and let them know the answer from the Department of Media, Culture, and Sport does not address the petition. It does not, all the reasons it's giving are not what is being asked about. And so you think there's a big misunderstanding. Just tell them that. Like that. If I was going to send one message, say that there's a big misunderstanding from the Department of Media, Culture, and Sport that what the question they are answering is not what we are asking for. Like, we are not asking for endless support. We're not saying that that they have to support old games. You know, we're asking for them to end support responsibly. That's if we're gonna sum it up. So that the customers can retain or repair them in some way, the games that they have bought. I think that's the best way to. For everybody else, there is I'm not sure what's going on. Others are kind of managing it now. But what? You can go to the Discord and ask for ideas on that. Because there could be some things later where more publicity could help that I'm not. Most of what I've been doing has been in contact with the organizers and the political insiders for kind of relevant, what? I lost my train of thought. Yeah, the most relevant moves that we have to make. Some of those, I think that comes more about talking to the members of European Parliament or the EU Commission. Speaking broadly, I can't get into the specifics, I'm afraid. But and those don't necessarily need like masses, but keeping interest on this helps. So but I know far less how to deal with that. So going to the unofficial Discord, it's going to be a ton of links on this description this time. Going there for more ideas probably might be the best move. So for people who are kind of in touch with like the other kind of ground game stuff, the most important ground game stuff was getting the signatures in the first place. So. If somebody's saying Freeman's Mind 0 has been incorrectly placed, I think that was like intentionally placed as like a good like jumping off spot to insert it. So let's see. If the official Stop Killing Games Discord has been closed down, why is it still around? Aren't you going to shut it down? Well, one, I'm not in charge of it. But two, the people managing it, I think they kept it up as for like an archive for possible information purposes or something like that. And somebody's saying, can you tell us more about Moritz Katzner? Oh yeah, he is one, since he's comfortable talking about that publicly, he is one of the political insiders. He knows what sort of decision process was involved in selecting Moritz as new leader. Well, he's not the, I didn't select him as the new leader, and I don't think he really is the new leader. This spokesperson of the initiative is still Daniel Ondruska. He's a major helper, though. However, he is checked by others, too, because they're people who I don't know if I can say their names now or not, but one of them is a lobbyist, another is another political insider. If Moritz said something that we thought, like, hey, I'm not sure this is a good idea, and they said, yeah, that's a bad idea, don't do it, we would absolutely take that into consideration. But point is, he knows way more about the EU political process than me or any of the official organizers. So recognizing they know more than we do is a good thing. You know, I'm almost in a capacity where I'm almost following orders unless I think something sounds like a bad idea, and then I question them on it. So I'd rather have people who know what they're doing, you know, coming up with all the plans than us, unless it's something we feel like we know what we're talking about, which is not most things with the EU political outreach. So yeah, he is definitely an instrument. He's not the leader. Like I think the person who runs the Discord is Whitehorse. So he's not the leader. He's more like an instrumental figure is the way I would put it. So I think it's the wisest thing we can do to follow him and people like him who know what they're doing here. So, how come you and so many YouTubers say something, then go more on that later? Seems like a meme I've heard so often. Well, for me, it's because it would kind of wreck the flow of whatever thought I'm having, where I feel like occasionally it's because it's something we're going to come back to that has, well, that's flow related too, but it's usually more like I'm trying to talk about one point. This other point is relevant, and there's more things I want to say on that other point too, but that would kind of derail the flow of everything if I just immediately go for like another 3 minutes on this other side point, because now people have forgotten what the original point is. So it's something I want to come back to. Occasionally it's something that it's like kind of a surprise and it's funny, but for the most part, it's going to wreck my flow if I give it more than just a passing mention at that point in the video. So, okay. About 3/4 through the questions, then I'll take live ones. Let's see. I'll just say Freeman's Mind is definitely, it's among the priorities for me. Okay, I'll just say that's the best way to put it. It's not necessarily the priority, but it's among them. So, okay, somebody mentioned that somebody else really liked the yellow in Human Revolution. If it was so great, why did they get rid of it for Mankind Divided then? Huh? Yeah. Let's see. And what stopped them from using colored lighting instead of tinting it? You know? If Stop Killing Games is expanded during the legislation process to cover all software, not just games, will you consider that an issue? Through that avenue, yes. If it was tagged on to something else, but we were still doing the other initiatives independently, then it might be okay. It's just that I don't want it replacing it because that hurts our odds. But if this is like a done deal and there's like even more momentum and we have even bigger backing, sure, we can piggyback onto that. But if we were to take the Stop Killing Games initiative and that was added on and that didn't have like the blessing of basically EU Parliament and the Commission, then I don't know about that. Yeah, well, I might even be against it then, just because I want to maximize our odds to make sure video games don't get overlooked. And taking on all software, look, if the EU is ready to do it, like they're gung ho on this, then sure. But if they're not, then no, because that opens the scope on it. So, yeah, as long as it doesn't lower our chances, that's the main thing. And I think a lot of ways of doing that would lower our chances. Have I played Helldivers 1 or 2? I played some of 1, didn't really get into it. 2 seems much more interesting. I'll probably play it eventually when it gets real cheap. But let's see. Okay, this is the question I thought I should... I thought I should give some... I'm not going to answer this one, but I'll give some context here. So it's asking, what are your thoughts on Charlie Kirk's assassination? Well, first off, I barely knew that much about him before this happened. I only heard him mentioned a couple times. But I don't want to get into this one because this might not be what you think. Periodically on YouTube, there are certain topics where I hear news that somebody talking about this gets demonetized or they get banned sometimes, in rare cases. And it becomes clear that certain topics on YouTube are just kind of like, they're real hot to touch where if you don't know what you're doing and you can get into trouble, even if you're not saying anything crazy, but just because the internet's already bad with nuance, probably worse now that I imagine we have AI moderation through a lot of things. So it's just looking for buzzwords on things to basically give a strike on a video or extreme cases get a channel banned. So this strikes me as one of those topics, and I don't even want to mention the previous ones because I'm not sure they are still not safe. You know, I'll give one example that I'm relatively sure is safe, just to give you an example of what I'm talking about. When the pandemic first started, you know, getting bigger, for a while I saw lots of documentation on this. If you said the word COVID, that's it. That video is demonetized. And there have been other various topics too. So I'm thinking, this isn't something I'm an expert on, something I really have strong opinions on. So like I would just, it was hard not to talk about that though. So what I would do is, at the time I'd say like the virus or the pandemic instead of that, because that didn't trigger whatever flags they have monitoring this. Since then, there have been other topics that, like, I think it's silly to clamp down on this, just talk about it, you know? Because, like, I can understand if some topics might lead to somebody saying something crazy, but then you should go after them for the crazy thing they said, not just discussing the general topic, which is news relevant. But look, YouTube especially has like a real, like ham-fisted approach to censorship on things, in my opinion. And also, it's inconsistent too. There have been other topics, which I'm not going to mention, which a big news channel covering it is fine. But then like a smaller independent news channel covering it, giving it almost identical coverage. So they're not like really controversial. They get flagged. So it's like, I don't want to wade into that pool if I don't have to, essentially. And this strikes me as one of those. I will say my views on this are not especially radical, and I think a lot of people would see them like, yeah, that makes sense, or yeah, that's reasonable. Like, but I don't want to touch that. So because of YouTube, if I felt like there was zero chance of YouTube just kind of like giving like a shadow ban or even escalating more than that, then I'd be fine discussing it. But this is one of those cases where I think it's probably wiser not to. So, and it was for different reasons, I'm assuming. But you know, I've already had one video banned from YouTube, so with Phantasmagoria too. But yeah, this is absolutely when people talk about the chilling effect, this is exactly what it is. So, you know, you start self-censoring just because you're concerned about the consequences because of other actions that you've seen happen. Yeah. And plus, again, I barely heard him mention prior to this. Like, I heard him like a couple times. I didn't know much about him at all. So it's not like you're missing out on like lots of juicy commentary I have on it. So, so now that you've changed the world for video games, well, we'll see. We're on a different trajectory though. What cause would you like to take up next? Yeah, none. Like, I guess they're saying, assuming it doesn't require a lot of work on your part. I mean, I guess speaking whimsically, not even like theoretically, because look, this like burned me up working on Stop Killing Games. But I mean, just well, you're gonna hear one of them in the follow up, but another one would be how Microsoft. I think there's actually a community solution emerging, but they basically bricked all their mixed VR headsets, or they haven't bricked them, but they pseudo bricked them, where if you have the old operating system and the old drivers already installed, you can continue using it. But if you, let's say you wanted to install Windows 10 now and just download the drivers for a mixed reality headset, if not now, then definitely in a few months, or maybe it's next year, that would be impossible. And like, I feel like it should be illegal to require you to connect to a company just to get drivers, or to clarify, you might have to connect to them to download them, but to install them. That's it. So yeah, if you have to connect to the company and they're supporting it to get the drivers, that's fine. Tons of companies do that. But I mean, once you've downloaded them, if the only way you can install them for hardware is that you have to connect to their server, I think that should be illegal. I mean, that's, or like a lot of provisions to prevent that from happening. Yeah, that's why I've boycotted Razer, because they have DRM on their mice that, you know, if you want to use all the features, like let's say all the buttons to your mouse, you have to connect to them for that. And you can't just download an installer and install it offline, as I understand it. So yeah, that's one. So that's a more tame thing. I mean, speaking more broadly, I mean, I would try to, you know, there'd be so much resistance that just be fantasy, but like try to end hunger. You know, make sure there are provisions so that everybody, at least theoretically, has enough to eat. You know, if like, you know, there's a sort of, if everything's functioning as intended, then like no one would go hungry unless it was by choice, like they were fasting or something. Same for homelessness. You know, I mean, obviously if there's like a screw up, then yeah, I wouldn't cover that, but homelessness, like everyone should have a place to live. And I guess in a developed country, you know, have just what's considered basics in modern era, like have access to electricity and plumbing, you know, something like that. Just that would be another one. But again, there's just so much for the. It wouldn't have to be nice housing. Same for the food. It wouldn't have to be gourmet food. But to me, that would be a priority. You know, try to go after the weakest link. Let's see. I guess medical coverage. Though that one's trickier because there could be more resource constraints on that one. I guess have it organized essentially by need, essentially, but you can maybe pay for private practitioners if you wanted to, you know, hop around the line on that, like, as long as the two didn't conflict, I guess. So, like, let's say you had pneumonia or something, and you can get an appointment, but it's going to take you several weeks because there's only so many doctors available. Or there's a private doctor, he will see you tomorrow, but you have to pay money for that. Okay, well, that's fine. But if it was something like organ donors, then that kind of has to be done by need, I think, because then you're basically costing someone else's life, essentially, by paying money for it over you know, having it kind of handed out by who needs it the most. So you're prioritizing people who are this is another topic I should be careful talking about. You know, not because I have, like, I think, insane views, but because it's easily misinterpreted that way, or there's, in some cases, there are people intentionally trying to misinterpret it. I guess what it comes down to is I'm a big believer in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I feel like the bottom two rungs, you know, like basic needs and security, those are things that, as a civilization, if we have the resources, should be prioritized for everyone, really. And if they're not, I kind of see that as lacking. I mean, a lot of people disagree with that, but I think a lot of people disagree with it haven't necessarily been on the wrong side of that also. Because some people have, like, strong ideologies until they're on the wrong end of the stick, then all of a sudden they're change their mind on a lot of things. Like, okay, I heard this might be, I don't know enough about her life to comment on this authority, but one talking point I've heard a lot is for Ayn Rand, she accepted, like, I think Social Security or, you know, socialized medicine because she was in poor health. It's like, well, if you're really a true believer, you wouldn't. But, you know, but I don't, that's why I feel like it kind of exposes, like, what's most important, you know, when your own life is on the line. But, or if she was a true believer, I said, obviously most people would accept, you know, socialized medicine or something like that. So, but I have no, I guess trying to encourage a more sustainable population. I mean, I've heard the most effective way of doing that is, like, honestly, education, greater education for women, especially like in impoverished areas, and having contraceptives available, more basic environmental education, like understanding that we don't have unlimited resources. I think it's almost feels crazy, like the way a lot of our society is structured, with, like, how much we're depleting the ecosystem a lot in many areas, and just having so many systems predicated on that. So, those are ideas. If for some reason I wanted to be an activist, which I don't really, doubly so after doing Stop Killing Games. Yeah, the reason I was Stop Killing Games is because my analysis of the entire situation really made me think that I personally could influence this. Like, there was an opening that if I didn't do something, nothing was going to happen. If I did do something, I might actually be able to change this. That was my perception of it. For all this other stuff I'm mentioning, I do not have that perception, unless I wanted to dedicate my entire life to it, which I kind of don't. I guess I'm more selfish about that. So like I said before, I'm not a saint. You know, that doesn't mean I'm a bastard, but it means that I'm not like, you know, I want to do lots of fun stuff. So it's, and you know, if you have to devote your life to a cause, that means you're doing a lot less fun stuff. So, okay, move on to some more. Okay, we're going way over. Let me try to, I'll try to limit the questions some more. Yeah, my wife's knocking on the door, so I should really wrap it up. Okay. Questions I've answered. I have heard of Star Control 2, but I haven't played it. That's been mentioned a few times, so maybe I should look into it eventually. Any thoughts on the AI interactive 3D world generator called Genie 3? I'm pretty sure I mentioned that last time. Oh man, there was a... okay, real quick. It's interesting, but I'm much more interested in stuff that generates the 3D models and textures on that. And there was a really promising one that I saw a video on recently. It needs, what I saw, if you could combine, yeah, I wish I had the name of it. I'll have to put it in the world generation thing. We're really putting those for myself, but it basically created that. It basically did just that, except it was on small scale. So what we need is something like that, but that could stitch it together from other generations and take wherever there's the most overlap, or else prioritize what comes from the image, and then tie that to something like like video frame input. And I think if you had all that, it would be like the first layer of the dream software I'm talking about. But the Gemini 3 thing, it didn't. I think it's still really limited because it can only have, like, it has to do the AI generation constantly. It's limited to, I think, the 720 resolution at 24 frames a second, and it can only remember what's happened for a minute. Whereas if you could just, we already have such good tools for generating 3D graphics that if we could just have it take its best guess per scene, then stitch that together, then just output that as a 3D model and textures, which is what this other software does, which I'm really encouraged on. I think it was like World Lab. It might have been World Labs. I'm not sure, or that's another one. Then I'm super interested in that. But I feel like Gemini 3, it's obviously much more impressive, but it's kind of going in the wrong direction. Okay. Do you ski? Yes, but I haven't done it in a long time since it hasn't been much snow, and it can sometimes be a little pricey and take time to get out there. But do you have any sports or esports you follow? No, not really. So I was mentioning Whitest Kids You Know favorite episode. I still need to catch up on a lot of them. I think, geez, there's one I liked a lot, but. Well, I like a lot of them, but there was one. Oh yeah, the tattoo. I really like that one. The where he's going into the tattoo parlor and he's drunk. Yeah. So I was mentioning, have I seen Tower of Kalimanovo? I've seen it. I still need to play it. I think the creator gifted me a key to it, so I have no. I just need time, really. I'm definitely interested in that. Okay, I'm skipping some more since I'm running over. I've been going over 3 hours. How much of Gothic 2 have you played? I've beaten Gothic 2. I've played it before. They're asking which path I took. I think I took whatever gave you the crossbow, so maybe Dragon Hunter. It's been a long time since I played it. Is the short format of Game Dungeon videos gone? No, it's just gotten. There have been so many things that got in the way of it. And the thing is, the longer I've gone without one, the more I feel like I need to do a long one. So, no, that'll return. That will return. Skipping more questions. I barely know much about Pokemon. Somebody's asking about. I don't even know enough to have a favorite. Like I can identify like maybe 2, you know. So. Thank you for introducing gaming to me. See, this is one where I wonder if it's a bot. You know. Oh, they're saying they never had a lot of money, never considered gaming, but thanks to Game Dungeon, showing the beauty of older games, Data 6. Okay, well, sure. I'm very surprised I would have been the person to introduce you to gaming. Like, hey, there's a line from King's Quest 6 where you have to go through this big ordeal to make it to the land of the dead. And then you come before like the king of the realm of that. And then he just assumes you've come there to die. Like he says like, you know, I think I would have thought you would have found that your way here easily enough on the land above. You know? That's kind of how I feel about it. So he's saying, you know, I would have thought it would have been too hard to find a way to die on the overworld, but yeah, if you're here, I can kill you. You know? That's kind of how I feel about gaming, that I introduced them to that. Like, I would have thought you would have found out about gaming without me, but like, sure. You know. Okay, you can start doing the @Ross broadcast. I'll try to speed run a few of these. Sorry I went on so long. I'm looking at these last questions. Okay, somebody's thinking, well, I think the audience would disagree with you. Somebody's saying, don't you think it's high time I should kill off Freeman's Mind? Well, I would need a poll for that. Considering how this was at the bottom of the questions, though it was only submitted today, though, I'm gonna guess you're in the minority, so. Let's see. Oh, but yeah, they're talking about delaying the movie. Yeah, well, you know what? Paying rent. It's not really Freeman's Mind that's delaying the movie. It's paying rent that's delaying the movie. Okay, that's the way to interpret that. Okay, let's look at the live questions and try and wrap it up. How much percent is done of the next game dungeon? Well, it's the last one I was working on was the follow-up, so that was not the next. So I guess 0. but there is a chunk done on the follow-up. So. Thank you for Jazz. This is aposocial. I'm losing my grip on the lexicon here. I'm not sure entirely what they mean, but it sounds positive. I want to give you the best cookie. Oh, thank you. Bless you. Well, thanks. Oh, he's the same guy. Okay, thanks. Okay, you ask about Roblox. What are your thoughts on entrapment by authorities? You not answer my question, but rather want to talk about how ridiculous it was that Roblox motivated real-life meetups for online friends. Can answer your question. It was about Roblox. We thought about Roblox going after child abuser Hunter. Oh yeah, well that's just as ridiculous. That like, I mean, do you really need like lots of clarification here? This is another kind of like nuclear topic where, you know, you got to be more careful in your wording. But as I understand it, Roblox has a big child abuse problem. There are a lot of child predators hang out there, and this one guy was basically taking his own hands to kind of, I guess, catfish him to kind of report to the authorities. And Roblox blocked him, but kind of kept the unsafe environment. So it's like if they're gonna do that, they should clean their own house first. But I'm the wrong. I've never even played Roblox. This is a topic I definitely don't like diving deep into. So you're better off asking somebody else about it. You're only gonna get like surface level evaluation from me. You moved to Windows 11 or you jumping on a Linux train? Well, neither. I'm probably just gonna move to more modern Windows 10. I need them to fix that bug for the Windows S. I need to feel like Windows 11 will not screw up any of my hardware. My SSDs are probably too old to matter. I don't know. But maybe I upgrade in the future and I forget about that. You know, it's like, the other thing is, what? Yeah, I saw what, this wouldn't be a deal breaker, but I wouldn't like it. Somebody was reporting that they can undervolt stable on a stable stable voltage all day, you know, under any load on Windows 10. They've been doing it for like 9 months. They tried it on Windows 11. They could not undervolt for the life of them. Like, it always is demanding more. So it's like, I was thinking, well, geez, I'd want that to look into, because I finally spent some time trying to undervolt my system, and I'm glad I did. I mean, the speed's about the same, but I'm using maybe like 10, 15% less power. So great, you know? That means, well, the cost difference is probably minuscule, but the might help with stability for long term. So, okay. Is the next game dungeon the 4th follow-up? It probably isn't, because it's been so long since the real one, and I have a much newer audience, so I want to give them a more normal episode first. But then there's also the Halloween one I gotta do. So yeah, you guys might get disappointed on it. So, but follow-up's coming. Okay, it's coming. I know people are sick of hearing it, but it would have been out a long time ago if it wasn't for Stop Killing Games. Okay, I can't read that again. Okay, there we go. Okay, yeah, somebody's saying they don't know what they're smoking for killing off Freeman's mind. So yeah, I'm imagining that's what the majority of people are going to think on it. So, all right, I think I'll end it on that note. I don't know what's coming next, but something's coming next. So I'll end that there. See ya.